Anyway. Alright, let us begin at the beginning. For those of you that are just joining us, we are almost through Full Moon by Jen Butcher. It is the second book in the Dresden Files series. After today, if we finish, I will be reading urban legends and ghost stories for the next month or so on the Wednesdays. I'm sorry I had to postpone Wednesday stream for today, but there's a lot of things going on. But I'm going to be changing it up for spooky season, and then we're going to get into Grave Peril, which will be the next book in November. So look forward to that. Alright, let's start this in the right way. It is now story time for Sin. Story time with Sin. And get your blankets, your hot chocolate, put on the fan if it's still toasty where you live. And just pretend you got a nice cozy fire going on. And we will begin. Hope you enjoy. Oh, and FYI, all sound alerts and blurps and what have you they are disabled for this, so don't waste your points. Just settle in and listen. Chapter 25. The wolf's fur was speckled with drops of blood that had been beaded on it like rain. The gravel in the alley shone in the half-light from the distant street lamps. The wolf's muzzle, a little shorter and broader than I had seen in Wild Kingdom, was drawn back, black lips from fangs striped white and red like peppermints. Its eyes were blue rather than a proper lupine shade, and gleamed with a sort of demented awareness. I had time to see all those details because I didn't need my eyes for what I wanted to do. I thrust my hands into the beast's pelt as it went for my throat, wormed my way down between his forelegs with my buttocks, fingers digging in until I felt what I was looking for, the sharp middle edges of a belt buckle, down against the skin almost flush to the surface. As the wolf's jaws came toward my throat, I furiously worked the buckle, feeling the skin rip and tear from the wolf's hide as I jerked it open, then threw my arm to one side, clutching hard at the trailing strap. And abruptly a wolf belt was sliding out from beneath the gray suit jacket of Roger Harris, the forensic specialist for the local FBI office, the kid with the red hair and big ears. He crouched over me for a second, blinking in stunned amazement at me, blood on his mouth and lips. "Hexen, wolf, jerk off!" I snarled and slammed my knee up into his groin and hit home hard. Harris gasped and rolled off of me, reaching into his jacket, but I didn't let him get his gun. I stayed with him, keeping too close to let him move his arms freely, and grabbed him by those big ears and started slamming his head repeatedly against the gravel. He struggled against me for a few seconds, but I had taken him by surprise. His skull banged against the rocks over and over, and after half a dozen blows he stopped struggling. I released his ears with a little jerk and looked up at Tara and the wolves. They were closing in around him like a pack of sharks around a wounded dolphin, and I could read the blood in their eyes, in the bare fangs, and the white-knuckled grip on Tara's hands on her lead pipes. I felt a sudden surge of frustration, bad enough to have a bloodthirsty animals roaming all over the city. I didn't need more of them on my team. "Everyone back off," I snarled. "He's ours," Tara answered me in call. "He hurt those of our pack." "Then why don't you get them some help instead of wasting your time on this guy?" I said. "His blood is ours," Tara said, and the wolves confirmed this with a chorus of angry growls. "He can't hurt you now. Killing him won't make your friends any better, and the lost time might finish them." "You do not understand," Wizard Tara snarled, and the wolves echoed her in a chorus, white fangs showing. "It is our way." I stood up slowly to my full height. "I understand," I said in a very low and even voice, "that you do not want to make me any more angry than I already am." I met Tara's eyes and stared hard. My jaws ached from the clenching. "There's been enough killing. Take him out now and you're no different than he is." "Wrong," Tara said. "I would be alive and he dead. Not if you cross me, you won't be." We held attention for a moment, glaring at one another. I saw uncertainty waver across her face. She didn't know that I was out of gas, magically speaking, and she'd seen me do too many impressive things with my powers to want to defy me lightly. She blinked first and looked away from me with a sullen sound in the back of her throat. "As you wish, wizard," she said. "We don't have time to waste fighting one another. The rest of his pack is coming. We have wounded to tend to." I nodded and swept my gaze around at the three wolves around me. "Anybody else?" I challenged. They all backed away from me and didn't meet my eyes. "All right, then," I said, and I stooped to recover Harris's gun and the wolf pelt belt. "Do you have transportation out of here?" "Yes," Tara said. "Georgia?" One of the wolves, a leggy, lanky, pale brown beast, shuddered and paced in a circle, making small whimpering sounds. A moment later there was a whisper of power, and the she-wolf shivered and went still, her head bowed. And then she shook herself, and all that pale brown hair faded from paler skin, leaving me staring at the lanky, dark blonde girl I'd seen in the department store a few days ago, sans all the black leather. Georgia rose to her feet and said, "I'll have her bring around the van on the next street. Can you get them to it?" Her expression was tense, her eyes a little wide. "Yes," Tara said. "Everyone come back to yourselves." The other two ambulant wolves began to pace in a slow circle, gathered their own power, and their own transformations commenced until they stood before me as a pair of naked young men. One of them a short, stout boy I'd seen arguing against Georgia, Billy, and the other face I recognized but couldn't name. Tara took charge of the situation while I held Harris's gun and kept watch down the alley. She and the two young men made a litter for one of the wolves out of Harris's jacket, and the other Tara simply picked up with a flexion of wire-tight muscle and carried. Though it must have weighed 150 pounds, the wounded wolves yelped piteously, and Tara and the two young men cast dark glances at the downed Harris while they headed down the alley and toward the beach, leaving me alone with the kid. I hunkered down beside him and slapped his face till his eyes rolled open. He blinked once and then jerked as though he was about to sit up. I stuck the barrel of the semi-automatic in the hollow of his throat and said in a calm voice, "Hold still. Give me a sec." He froze, staring up at me with wide eyes. "I'm going to ask some questions, kid. I think I've got the answers already. But you're going to talk to me quietly and honestly, or I demonstrate point-blank bullet impact for you right here and now. Got it?" Harris's mouth twitched a few times before he managed to speak. "If you kill me," he said, "Denton won't stop till you're dead." "Give me a break, Roger," I said, back in a reasonable tone. "Denton wants me dead anyway. I could kill you now, and it wouldn't make any difference in what he has to do." Roger licked his lips and rolled his eyes without moving his head as though hoping for rescue. "How did you know about the belt?" "I saw Denton's inside, and I saw that before you all changed. You had to reach inside your jackets for something. I figured that first night Agent Ben was reaching into her jacket to touch the belt and tear Murphy's head off when she got mad. But she managed to remember not to do it in time and drew a gun instead, right?" Harris's head twitched in a slight nod. "The bargain," I said. "You're hexing Wolfen. So you've made a bargain with someone to get the power to change, to get the belts. Who is it?" "I don't know," Harris said, his eyes wide. "God, I don't know. Denton handled all of it." I narrowed my eyes at him and drew back the hammer on the gun. "Please," he squealed breathlessly. "I don't know. I swear to God. Denton handled all that. He just came to us, asked us if we wanted to back him, if we wanted to nail some of the scum that kept getting away from the law. And I told him I did. Jesus, I didn't know it was going to lead to this." "Lead to what, Roger?" I asked, my tone frosty. "Start from the beginning and make it quick." "Marcone," he said, eyes on the gun. "It's all about Marcone. Denton wanted to take him down." "You mean kill him?" His eyes flickered up to me. "He told us there was no other way to get to him, that he was doing more to poison the city than anyone alive, and he was right. Marcone's bought enough influence in this town to stay clear of the city police forever, and he carries weight on the national level, too. The Bureau has had more than one investigation on him called off. He's untouchable." "So you plan to use the belts to kill him?" He nodded. "But there would be evidence. No one would believe he'd just been mauled by wild dogs. There'd be a full investigation, forensics, the works." I understood and nodded. "So you needed someone to make it a neat package. Let me guess, the street wolves." Harris showed his teeth. "A gang of felons and troublemakers with a wolf motif? Murder of a criminal figure by persons with a wolf motif? No one would bother to check the figures on that one. It's obvious, and we get one more dangerous group off the street." "Yeah, Roger, except that they'd be innocent of that particular crime. Did you think of that? Innocent like those other people who died the nights around the full moon last month? You killed them, you and the rest of Denton's team." He closed his eyes, his face going pale, and he shuddered. "The change, when you're changed, when you're a beast, it's so incredible, so much speed, power, your body just sings with it. I tried coke once in college, and it was nothing compared to this, the blood." His tongue flicked out again over his blood-stained lips, a thirsty motion this time rather than a nervous one. "I think I'm starting to see. Denton didn't tell you about that part about how your thoughts are influenced. He probably didn't know himself, and when you've done it once." Harris nodded emphatically. "You just can't stop, man. It gets to where you're pacing the room at night, and it's better than sleep." When you get finished hunting, you feel so alive. He opened his eyes again, staring up at me, pleading. I didn't mean to kill those people. We started off with criminals, some gangsters dealing drugs. We were just going to scare them, but it was too much. They screamed and ran, and we ran after them, and we killed them, and my God, Dresden, it was beautiful. And it happened again, I said, a couple times. Innocent people just pour schmucks in the wrong place at the wrong time. Harris turned his head away from me and nodded. Denton said that we could salvage it. He said that we could pin those killings on the street wolves as well, make everyone think they had done it, and we just went along with him. I shook my head. That doesn't explain why you dragged McFinn into this, Denton, the kid said. It was all him. He said there was someone else we could also take the blame to be certain we'd be in the clear, that he had the man for it. We broke into McFinn's house and there was all this occult stuff. We messed up some of it and left. And the next night more people were dead, and more the next night. That's when we went after that Sly Marcone's business partner, wasted the bastard and his goon. And then you laid low for a month. Harris swallowed and nodded. Denton took the belts. He hid them from us. He had held out better than anyone, and my God, poor Ben was so far gone it's like it wasn't even human anymore. Wilson wasn't much better, but we lasted out the month. And then you killed Marcone's bodyguard at the Varsity. Harris's eyes flared. Yes, you should see his record, the things we know he did, but we can't get through a court. My God, Dresden, he had it coming. Maybe, maybe not, but who are we to judge? Who are we not to? Harris demanded. The power was in our hands. We had a responsibility to use it for good, to do our jobs. Hell, Dresden, if you're such a do-gooder, you should be helping us, not getting in the way. These men are untouchable, and you know it. I shifted my weight uncomfortably. I don't agree with your methods of setting people up to take the blame for your killings. Harris sneered. Like McFinn has never killed anyone. Hell, he's a murderer now, isn't he? After that scene at the police station, anyone would be convinced he was a killer. Except me, I said. McFinn would have never been there if you hadn't messed up the circle that held him. Yeah, Harris said in a spiteful, frustrated rage to his tone. Except you got to poking around in our business. Christ, that crazy report to Murphy even talked about the belts. That was when Denton starts taking you seriously. If you had any brains at all, you'd pull that trigger and get the hell out now before Denton and the others come out of the haze and come after you, because you know way too much. Why the street wolves, I said, instead of shooting him. Why send me off to check them out? Denton figured they'd kill you, Harris spat, and get you out of our hair. I nodded. It figured that someone else had been trying to kill me the whole while, and I hadn't really noticed. And he knew that they were after me after I got away from them the first time. Yeah, and had me tailing them so we could find you and make sure you were dead. When I saw you in the back of that car, I figured you were. So we planned to hit on the street wolves to go down tonight before McFinn went after Marcone. How did you know about that? I asked. Harris snorted. Marcone told us. The snake called, asking us for police protection. I almost smiled. Did he get it? Hell no, Harris answered me. He lifted his chin and balled his hands into fists, and I felt him tighten up beneath me. I'm done talking, he said. If you aren't going to sign on with us, then get the hell out of here and pull the trigger, but quit wasting my time. I'm not done talking, I said. I jammed the gun crosswise over the kid's throat, strangling him. You're going to give Denton a message for me. I'm sick of dancing around. Tell him he'll get a shot at me at Moonrise at Marcone's place. Harris squirmed beneath me, making raspy, gagging sounds. His eyes widened at my words. It doesn't take a genius to figure out that he'll try to be there when McFinn shows up, I said. That he'll want to make sure everyone there is dead, so he's the only one who can report what happened. You tell him that I'll be there, and tell him that he's not going to get away with it. Do you understand me, kid? I let up on the pressure, and Harris croaked out a vague affirmative. I rose away from him, keeping the gun in one hand and the belt in the other. I saw his eyes flicker to the belt, tracking the movement with a tense, strained sort of hunger. Why tell me, the kid asked. Why warn us? I stared down at him for a long seconds before I answered him in a quiet voice. Because I don't like what you're doing. What you are. You aren't using the power you've been given. It's using you. You're turning into animals. You're using savagery and fear to try to uphold the peace. Now it's your turn to see what it's like to be afraid. Harris rose to his feet, his red hair askew, blood drying on his mouth, and back several paces from me, his eyes darting around. My belt, I said. My belt, he said. I want my belt. Forget it, kid, I told him. The smartest thing you can do is go lock yourself in your room and stay there until all this is over, but because one way or another you aren't using this belt again. His face whitened. He took a step toward me. I pointed the gun at him. He froze, his hands balling into fists. You won't get away with this, he said, his voice thick with tension. Moonrise, I told him. Then turned on my heel and walked quickly from the alley, although my sock feet on the gravel combined with my limp probably spoiled the badass image. 30 feet down the hallway, Tara appeared from the shadows and fell into step beside me, close enough to support me if I should fall. You were wrong, wizard, she said. I looked down at her, and she met my gaze with her soulless amber eyes. How so? They have not become animals. She looked over her shoulder, her eyes narrowed. Animals do not do what they have done. Animals kill to eat, to defend themselves and their own, and to protect their territory, not for the joy of it, not for the lust of it. She looked back up at me. Only humans do that, wizard. I grimaced, but couldn't really refute her. I guess you're right. Of course, Tara said. We walked in silence for a moment. You will try to help my fiancé? I will try, I said. But I can't let his curse claim any more lives. She nodded, her eyes dark. He would want it that way. He thinks of others before himself. He sounds like a good man. She shrugged, but there was a sudden worried weight in her shoulders. And these others, the FBI, they will try to stop you? Yes. And when they do, I can't let them go on like they have. They're out of control. I don't think they can stop themselves from killing now. I didn't look down at Tara, just focused on taking steps one at a time. When they do, I said, when they do, I guess I'm going to need to get very human. Let me pause that for that ad break. We don't need to have no ad break. Give me a second. I'm going to take a quick drink too. I came prepared today. I have water in tea and juice. I made sure I was covered all the way around. Chapter 26. Tara and I walked toward the shores of Lake Michigan. There along 49th Street, out of the big old van. Its engine rattling, its headlights came on us as we approached, and the driver got out to roll the open side door for us. Harry, she said, oh God, what did they do to you? She hurried over to me, and I felt Susan's warmth against me as she slid one of my arms over her shoulder and pressed up against my side. She was wearing jeans that showed off her long legs and a dark red jacket that complemented her dark skin. Her hair was tied back into a ponytail and made her neck look slender and vulnerable. Susan felt soft and warm beyond belief and smelled clean and delightfully feminine, and I found myself leaning against her. All the aches and pains that had faded into the background came throbbing back to the forefront of my awareness in comparison to her soft warmth and gentle support. I liked the way Susan felt better than the way I did. They beat him, Tara explained, but they kept him alive, as I told you they might. Your face looks like a sack of purple potatoes, Susan said, her dark eyes studying me, the lines in her face deepening. You say the sweetest things, I mumbled. They loaded me into the van where Georgia, Billy, and the other alphas were crouched. Two of the young people, a boy with blinking, watery blue eyes, and a girl with mousy brown hair, lay on their backs, gasping quietly. Clean white bandages had been wrapped around their wounds. Georgia had evidently been the attending medic. All the alphas were dressed in plain but dark bathrobes rather than in their birthday suits, and I found an oddly grateful feeling toward them for it. Things were weird enough without needing to ride around in a van with a bunch of naked, somewhat geeky college students. I put my seatbelt on and noted the bruises on my hands and forearms, ugly, dark purple and brown splotches so thickly scattered over my skin that in places I couldn't tell where one stopped and the next began. I sat down and leaned against the window, pillowing my head on my right hand. What are you doing here with these people? I asked Susan when she got in the driver's seat. Driving, she said. I was the only one old enough to rent the van. I winced. Ouch. Tell me about it, she said, and started the engine. After you jumped out of the car and I finished with my heart attack, we called the police just like you said. Tara went to look for you and told me that the police had shown up too late and that the street wolves had taken you. How did the truck crash like that? Bad luck. Someone made all their tires explode at the same time. Susan gave me an arch look and started up the van. Those bastards, just lie still, Harry. You look like a train wreck. We'll get you someplace quiet. Food, I said. I'm starving, Tara. Can you keep track of Moonrise? I will, she said. The clouds are moving away. I can see the stars. Fantastic, I mumbled, and then I went to sleep, ignoring the jostling of the van. I didn't wake up to the smell of fried grease and charred meat. It made me look up at the drive-thru window of a fast food burger joint. Susan paid for everything with cash, passing paper sacks to everyone. I snaggled a golden paper crown from one of the bags and idly joined it into a circle and put it on my head. Susan blinked at me and I let out a brief laugh. I intoned with an imperious narrowing of my eyes, the Burger King. Susan laughed again, shaking her head, and Tara gave me a serious, level gaze. I checked the status of the young people in the back of the van and found them, even the wounded ones, hungrily wolfing, no pun intended, down the food. Tara caught the direction of my glance and leaned toward me. Puppies, she said, as though the word should explain more than it did. They were not hurt so badly as they thought. They will hardly have scars to show for it. That's good to know, I said, and sipped my cola and chomped down steaming hot French fries. But what I'm really interested in, I said, is knowing why your blood was in Marcone's restaurant the night before the full moon. Tara took the hamburger patty off the bun and started nibbling on it, holding it in her fingers. Ask another time. No offense, I said, but I'm not so sure there's going to be another time, so tell me. Tara took another bite of meat and then shrugged. I knew that the pack had harassed my fiancé was about. I deduced where they might strike and where they went there to attempt to stop them. All by yourself? Tara sniffled. Most of those who turned themselves into wolves know little about being wolf wizards. That these had taken too much of the beast inside. I ran through the window glass and fought, but they outnumbered me. I left before I could be killed. And what about these kids? I said, nodded toward the back of the van. She glanced back at them, and for a moment I saw warmth and pride gleaming in her eyes, subverting the remote alien lines on her face. Children, but with strong hearts. They wished to learn, and I taught. Let them tell you their tale. Maybe later, I said, and finished off the French fries. Where are we going? To a safe place to arm and prepare ourselves. Myself, I contradicted her. To prepare myself. I'm not taking you with me. You are incorrect, Tara said. I'm going with you. No. She fastened her amber eyes on mine. You are a strong wizard, but you have not yet seen my beast. The man you will oppose will take my fiancé from me, and I will not allow that. I will be with you, or you will kill me to stop me. This time it was I who looked away at first. I sipped at my drink, scowling while Tara placidly ate more of the hamburger patty. Who are you? I asked finally. One who has lost too many of her family already, she said, and then she settled back on the seat and withdrew from the conversation, falling silent. This is the part of the book I'd forgot about. One who has lost too many, I grumbled, frustrated. Mocking her beneath my breath, I turned back to the front of the van and hunched my shoulders over my burger. Put some clothes on, you weird, yellow-eyed, table-dancing werewolf, training cryptic, stared me right in the eyes and don't even blink, wench. There was a hissing sound from the back seat, and then I flicked a scowl back over my shoulder. Tara was chewing on her meat. Her eyes were shining, her mouth was curved at the corners, and her breath was puffing out her nostrils in near silent laughter. That's the kind of description, whenever I read the words, they chuffed with laughter, and when I write someone who's not human of that nature, that's what I usually envision, actually. The safe place we were going turned out to be a big house up near the Gold Coast, not far from Marcone's own mini palace. The house wasn't large by the neighborhood standards, but that was like saying that the bale of hay isn't much to eat by elephant standards. Susan drove the van up to the break in a high hedge, up the long driveway of white concrete into a 6-car garage whose doors rolled majestically up before us. I got out of the van in the garage and stared at the Mercedes and the Suburban also parked in it. Where are we? I said. Tara opened the side door of the van, and Georgia and Billy and the other young men emerged, assisting the 2 wounded werewolves. Georgia stretched, did interesting things to the dark bathrobe, and drew her mane of tawny hair back from her lean face with one hand. It's my parents' place. They're in Italy for another week. I rubbed my hand over my face. They aren't going to mind you having a party, are they? She flashed me an annoyed look and said, not as long as we clean up all the blood. Come on, Billy, let's get these 2 inside and into bed. You go on, he said, fastening his eyes on me. I'll be along in a minute. Georgia looked like she wanted to give him an argument, but shook her head instead, and with the help of the other young man, took the 2 invalids inside. Tara, still naked and supremely unconcerned about it, followed them, glancing back over her shoulder at me before she had disappeared. Susan promptly stepped in front of me and somewhat obstructing the view and said, 5 minutes dressed, and come find me then. Was my rapier reply. And then Susan went into the house, too. I stood in the dark with Billy, the stout, short kid in thick glasses. He had his hands stuffed into his bathrobe pockets, and he was peering at me. Do all wizards, he said, get the kitty crowns and wear them around, or is that only for special occasions? Do all werewolves, I shot back, snatching the crown from my head, wear glasses and too much Old Spice, or is that only for full moons? He grinned at me rather than taking umbrage. You're quick, he said. I always wanted to be that way. He stuck out his hand toward me. Billy Borden. I traded grips with him wearily, and he tried to crush my hand in his. Harry Dresden, I told him. You look pretty beat up, Mr. Dresden, he said. You sure you can handle it going out again tonight? No, I answered in a spurt of brutal honesty. Billy nodded and then pushed his glasses up higher onto his nose. Then you need our help. Oh, good grief. The Mickey Mouse Club of Werewolves wanted to throw in on my side. Wolf Katir roll call. Billy, Georgia, Tommy, sheesh. No way, I said. Absolutely not. Why not? He said. Look, kid. You don't know what these Hexenwolfen can be like. You don't know what Marcone can be like, and you sure as hell have never seen anything like McFinn outside of a movie theater. And even if you had the skills to deal with it, what makes you think you have the right to be going along? Billy considered the question seriously. The same thing that makes you think that you do, Mr. Dresden, he said. I opened my mouth and closed it again. I know I don't know a lot compared to you. For some reason, Stormy comes to mind when I'm reading about Billy. It's kind of odd. I know Stormy may refute that, but the description kind of reminds me of him. I know I don't know a lot compared to you, Billy said, but I'm not stupid. I've got eyes. I see some things everyone else tries to pretend aren't there. This vampire craze sweeping the nation. Why the hell shouldn't there be some genuine vampires in it? Did you know that violent crimes have increased nearly 40% in the last 3 years, Mr. Dresden? Murder alone has almost doubled, particularly in heavy urban areas and isolated rural areas. Abductions and disappearances have gone up nearly 300%. I blinked at the kid. I hadn't really read the numbers. I knew that Murphy and some of the cops had said that the streets were getting worse. I knew myself on some deep level that the world was getting darker. Hell, it was one of the reasons I did idiotic things like I was doing tonight. My own effort to lift up a torch. I'm sort of a pessimist, Mr. Dresden. I think people are almost too incompetent to hurt themselves so badly. I mean, if criminals are trying, they couldn't increase the production by 300%. And I hear stories, read the tabloids sometimes. So what if the supernatural world is making a comeback? What if that accounts for some of what's going on? What if it does? I asked him. Billy regarded me steadily without looking me in the eyes. Someone has to do something. I can, so I should. That's why we're here, the Alphas. Tara offered us the chance to do something when she met us through the Northwest Passage Project, and we took it. I stared at the kid. I could argue with him, but there wouldn't be much to point to it. I knew his argument backward and forward. I'd worked it out myself. If I was 10 years younger, a foot shorter, and a couple pounds heavier, that could have been me talking. And I had to admit the kid did have power. I mean, turning yourself into a wolf is no cheap parlor trick, and I did have one angle to play, and I took it. I didn't want this kid's blood on my hands. I don't think you're ready for the big leagues yet, Billy. Could be, he said, but there's no one else in the bullpen. I had to give the kid credit. He had resolve. Maybe you should sit this one out and live to fight another day. It could all go bad, and if it does, those Hexenwolfen we took down by the beach are going to be coming for you. Someone needs to stay with your wounded people to protect them. Most likely, if they go through you, they're going to go through us too. It'd be smarter to pile on everything we've got in one place with you. I chuckled. All your eggs in one basket? He shook his head. All the money on the most likely winner. I studied him in silence for a long minute. I was confident of his sincerity. It just oozed out of him in a way that only the really inexperienced and the idealistic can manage. It was comforting at the same time as the most frightening thing about him. His ignorance. No, not ignorance, really. Innocence. He didn't know what he was going to have to face. If I'd let him go along, I'd be dragging him down with me, despite what he had seen tonight. I'd be exposing him to a whole new, violent, bloody, and dangerous world. One way or another, if I let Billy Borden and his buddies go with me, these innocent children wouldn't live to see the sunrise. But God help me, he was right about one thing. I needed the help. Everyone who's going to take orders from me. Everyone who's going takes orders from me, I said. He drew in a sharp breath, his eyes gleaming. Not Tara. You do what I say, you do it when I say it, and if I tell you to leave, you go. No questions. You got it? I got it, Billy said. It gave me a cocky grin that simply did not belong on the face of a geeky little college nerd in a black bathrobe. You're a smart man, Mr. Dresden. I snorted at him and just then, and the automatic light on the garage door opener went out, leaving us in darkness. There was a disgusted sound from the doorway, and the lights came on again. Georgia in all her willowy, annoyed glory was standing in the doorway to the garage. Billy Borden, she said, don't you have any better sense than to stay here in the dark? She stalked out toward him, scowling. He looked up at her calmly and said, Tell everyone we're going along. Dresden's in charge. If they can handle that, they're in. If not, they're staying here to guard Cindy and Alex. Georgia's eyes widened. She gave a little whoop of excitement. She turned to me and threw her arms around me for a moment, making my shoulders scream in pain, then whirled to Billy and bent down to do the same thing. He winced when she did, and she stood up and jerked his black bathrobe, clearing it off to one side of his pale chest. To give the kid credit, his stoutness was the result of what looked like quite a bit of solid muscle. And along the line of his chest there was a thickly clotted wound, still trickling blood in a few places. What's this? Georgia said. You idiot. You didn't tell me you'd gotten hurt. Billy shrugged and pulled his robe straight again. It closed, and you can't bandage it and keep it on me when I change anyway. Georgia clucked her teeth, annoyed. You shouldn't have gone for the hamstring on that wolf. He was too fast. Billy flashed her a grin. I almost got him, though. You almost got yourself killed, she said, but her voice had softened a few shades. I noticed she hadn't moved her hand from the other side of Billy's chest, and he was looking up at her with an expectant expression. She fell silent, and they stared at one another for a minute. I saw her swallow. Please help me, young werewolves in love. I turned and walked into the house, moving carefully. I'd never much believed in God. Well, that's not quite true. I believed that there was a God, or something close to it to warrant the name. If there were demons, there had to be angels, right? If there was a devil somewhere, there had to be a God, but he and I never really seen things in quite the same terms. All the same, I flashed a look up at the ceiling. I didn't say or think any words, but if God was listening, I hope he got the message nonetheless. I didn't want any of these children getting themselves killed. Chapter 27. Oh, looks like ad breaks about to start whether I want to or not. Damn you, Twitch. I snoozed as much as I could, unfortunately. I may go ahead and try to get some of this ready. Like I said, we've got a long way to go and not a long time to get there. I kind of wanted to finish it today so I wouldn't have a very short stream, the next time. Chapter 27. Susan's perfume led me to her. She was waiting for me in a bedroom on the first floor. She stood in the simply furnished room in her jeans and white t-shirt, blazing with the words, "Eat it, I wouldn't sit on it." It was one of mine. She lifted her chin up high when she saw me, as though trying to keep the tears in her eyes from falling. Our gazes met and held. We had looked into one another before more than a year ago. She had fainted when she saw what was inside me through the soul gaze. I don't know what it was she saw. I don't look too hard in the mirrors. Inside of her, though, I'd seen passion like I'd rarely known in people other than myself, the motivation to go, to do, to act. It was what drove her forward, digging up stories of the supernatural for a half-comic rag like the arcane. She had a gift for it, for dragging down into the muck that people tried to ignore, and coming up with facts that weren't always as easily explained. She made people think. It was something personal for her. I knew that much, but not why. Susan was determined to make people see the truth. I shut the door behind me and limped toward her. "They'll kill you," she said. "Don't go." As I reached her, she put her hands on against my chest and then her cheek. "I've got to. Denton can't afford to let me live now. I need to finish this business before it gets any more out of hand. Before more people die. If I don't go tonight, Denton will be able to kill Marcone and McFinn and set McFinn up for all the killings. He'll get away clean, then he'll be able to focus on me and maybe on you too. We could go somewhere," she said quietly. "We could hide." I blinked my eyes closed. She said we. She hadn't really done that much before. I hadn't really thought in those terms either. I hadn't much thought in those terms for a lot of years, not since the last time. I should have said something about it, acknowledged the implication. I knew it was there, and she knew I'd noticed. She held still waiting. Instead, I said, "I'm not much good at hiding, neither are you." Her breath went out in a little whisper, and I felt her tighten a little against me. There would be tears on my shirt, I knew, but I didn't look down at her. "You're right," she said a moment later. Her voice was shaking. "And I know you are, but I'm afraid, Harry. I know we haven't really been close friends and lovers, but—" "Work," I said. I closed my eyes. She nodded. "Work." Her fingers tightened on my shirt, and she looked up at me. Her dark eyes swam with tears, still more on the smooth lines of her cheek. "I don't want to lose you now. I don't want the work to be all that's left." I tried to think something smart to say, something that would reassure her, calm her, help her feel better, to understand what I felt for her. But I wasn't even sure what it was I felt. I found myself kissing her, the rough growth on my mouth and chin brushing her soft skin. She tensed at first and then melted against me with a deliciously feminine sort of willingness, a soft abandoning of distance that left her body in all its dark beauty. Pressed against mine, the kiss deepened, slowed, and became something intense and erotic and self-contained. The motion of our lips, the warmth of our bodies pressed together, the touch of my fingertips on her face feather light, the scratch of her nails as her fingers kneaded my shirt. My heart was pounding. I could feel hers too, racing. She broke the kiss first, and I swayed on my feet, my breath gone. Without speaking, she guided me down to the edge of the bed and sat me there. Then she vanished into the bathroom, reappearing with a basin of warm water, some soap, and a washcloth. She undressed me slowly, delicately. She changed the bandages, murmuring softly to me when it hurt, kissing my eyes and forehead to soothe me. She bathed me with the water, its warm washing away the dried sweat, blood, and some of the pain. Patiently, more gentle than rain, she made me clean while I drifted, my eyes closed. I could hear myself make a soft sound now and then in response to her touches. I felt her come to me. I felt her bare skin against mine, hot and smooth. I opened my eyes and saw the silver haze of the moon on far horizon across the lake. I saw Susan outlined in it, all sweetly feminine curves and lines, a beautiful shadow. She kissed me again, and I returned it in kind. It was a liquid, smooth thing, as restrained and desperate as the near still surface of a rushing river. Her lips pressed from my mouth and roamed over the skin she had just cleaned, and when I tried to touch her, she gently pressed my hands back down, telling me without words to be still. It went on like that, all skin and light touches, soft sighs, pounding hearts, until she settled atop me, keeping her weight off me with her legs and her hands, afraid to cause any pain. We moved together, feeling the power of our need, our hunger for one another, a pure blend of desire and warmth and affection, and incredible intimacy that shook us to the core. It ended in silence, the sensation all the more piercing for that, our mouths together, our breath mingling. She lay down beside me until our pounding hearts slowed down, and she rose and said, "I don't know if I want to fall in love with you, Harry, but I don't know if I could stand it." I opened my eyes and answered softly, "I never wanted to hurt you. I don't know what's right." "I know what feels right," she said, kissed me again, and started touching my forehead, lifting her head to study me with gentle, compassionate eyes. "You see so much pain." I just wanted to remind you that there was something else in the world. I'm a pretty tough guy. I mean, look at me. I can handle some rough stuff, but some things I'm not so tough about. I started crying hard, as Susan held me, rocked me gently till the tears had gone away. I wanted to stay there where it was warm and where I was clean, where there wasn't anyone dying. There wasn't any blood or snarling animals or no one trying to kill me. I kind of liked the idea of being there with Susan in her arms a whole lot more than I liked the idea of going out in the silver light of the full moon, which was growing greater under the horizon, coming up in a hazy nimbus. Instead, I drew away from her a little and sat up. It was a fool's moon. She rose from the bed, returned with an overnight bag, and drew out a pair of my black jeans, my black sneakers and socks, a heavy dark gray shirt, dark undies to complete the color theme, and bless her heart, ibuprofen. I rose to dress, but she pressed my hand on my shoulder and made me sit down, then dressed me herself slowly and carefully, her attention focused on the task. Neither of us spoke. Ever had a beautiful naked woman dress you? Talk about girding your loins for battle. This is something indescribably soothing and at the same time exciting about it. I could feel my body becoming more relaxed and aware, my senses more in tune with what was around me. I heard footsteps in the hall and a knock at the door. Tara's voice called, "Wizard, it's time." I stood up, but Susan grabbed my wrist. "Harry," she said, "wait a minute." She knelt down by the bag and drew out a heavy box, flat and broad. "I was going to give it to you for your birthday, but I thought you could use it." I tilted my head and took the box in hand. It was heavy. "What is it?" I asked her. "Just open it, dummy." She answered, smiling up at me. I did, and inside was the smell of soft work leather, sensuous and thick, wrapped in translucent paper. I tossed the lid aside and took the paper off, and found dark leather, new and matte black. Hardly casting back the light, I took it out of the box and unfolded it into a long, heavy coat, like my own duster in design, even to the mantle, around the shoulders and arms, but all but made of the finer material. I blinked at the coat. It must have cost a fortune. She laughed wickedly. "Yeah, but I got to wear it around naked just to feel it on my skin." Her face sobered. "I want you to have it, Harry. Something from me. For luck." She glided to my side and helped me into the coat. The coat settled around me with a comforting heaviness and a peculiar sort of familiarity. It felt just right. I plucked my mother's pentacle on its chain from beneath my shirt and wore it openly. Then I got Harris's confiscated sidearm from my coveralls tool pouch and put it in the coat pocket. I didn't have any other magical tools, maybe not even any more magic. The gun, all things considered, seemed an uncertain weapon at best, but I was ready as I was going to be. I turned to say goodbye to Susan to find her hurriedly stepping into clothes. "What are you doing?" I asked. "Getting dressed," she said. "Why?" "Someone's got to drive the van, Dresden." She tugged on her t-shirt, slung her jacket over her shoulder, and walked past me, pausing to give me a narrow glance. "Besides, this could be the biggest paranormal event I've ever had a chance to cover. Do you expect me to stay behind?" She pushed the door open and gave me an expectant look. Damn, I thought, double damn. One more person to worry about, one more person to protect. Susan wasn't a werewolf. She wasn't a wizard. She didn't even have a gun. It was crazy to even let her think about going along. But I found myself wanting to make sure she was somewhere close. "All right," I said, "but the same rules I give the kids. I'm in charge. You do what I say when I say, or you stay here." Susan pursed her lips and narrowed her eyes. "I kind of like the sound of that," she said, teasing me. "I like that look on you, too. Have you ever thought about growing a beard?" She then smiled and vanished out into the hallway. I scowled after her. She'd stay away from the worst of it. I'd make sure of that if I had tired of the van myself. I muttered something grouchy, bent my head to one side, and inhaled, smelling the smell of new leather, of fresh clothes, and soap, and ode to Susan still lingering on my skin, and I liked it. The jacket creaked as I started for it, and I caught sight of myself in the dresser mirror. My double, the one from the dream, stared back out at me. Only the roughness of the 3-day growth of dark whiskers, the bruises, were at contrast with the subconscious me neatly trimmed beard. Everything else was precisely the same. I turned my face rather quickly and paced from the room out to the van where the others were waiting. Showtime. Welcome back from the ad break. I'm sorry if y'all missed anything. Let me Scrolling. Okay, just making sure everything's groovy. I like to do a check on the chat before I actually proceed. Let me take another drink. I usually drink a big sip in between chapters because that way it keeps my voice good. Chapter 28. The moon rose in silver splendor in October sky strewn with pale clouds and brilliant stars. The clouds churned a white foam sea, and the moon was a vast, graceful clipper ship, its sails full of spectral light as it ran before the stretch of the cold autumn winds. Pale light bleached each of the uncut stones on the 9-foot wall around Gentleman Jardine Marcone's estate, making edges sharper, shadows blacker, until it looked like a barrier made of gaping white skulls. Trees grew up thick on the other side of the wall, blocking the view of the interior, though no branches extend far enough to provide a way to climb over it. "We've got to get over the wall," I said to the enormous dark wolf beside me, keeping my voice low as we all crouched in the shadows of the bushes across the street from Marcone's estate. "There will be security on it, maybe cameras, maybe infrared beams, maybe something else. I want you to find us a way past it." The wolf flickered her amber eyes toward me and made a soft assenting growl. Then she simply turned and faded into the darkness, leaving 5 more furry, crouching shapes grouped around me. The alphas didn't exactly inspire confidence, but they had all managed to master enough rudimentary magic to transform themselves into a very close approximation of wolves. At least it was something. Susan had parked the van on the hill leading up to Marcone's estate and remained with it in case we needed a quick getaway. When we arrived, a nude Tara West and 5 young people, 3 female, 2 male, had leapt out of the van. The alphas hurriedly tumbling out of their robes. "Hell's bells," I'd complained. "We're on a public street. Can you be something besides naked here, people?" Tara smirked in a liquid shimmer, become a gaunt, dark wolf. It's a beast fully as large as Denton and his cronies had been, but with a narrow muzzle and cleaner proportions. Like Denton and his crew of Hexenwolfen, she kept the exact same shade and color of her eyes, even in wolfish form. "Well," I demanded the others, "let's hurry it up." Georgia had slipped her lean body from her dark robe and melted in a few seconds into her wolf shape, then quickly slipped past me to go to Tara. Billy had growled something under his breath as he shrugged out of his robe, catching one sleeve on his arm as it began to change. Billy Wolf had stumbled over the robe, still hanging onto his forepaw, tripped and tumbled in the street with a wolf of expelled breath and a low whimper. I'd rolled my eyes. Billy the wolf had snarled and struggled out of his robe, picked it up carefully with his teeth like a large and particularly grumpy-looking Benji, and put it back in the van. One of the other girls had said, a red-headed lass who filled out her robe a little too generously. We're still a little new to this. She'd covered herself with her arms awkwardly, letting her robe fall from her shoulders. As she whispered a little chant and become a rather round, hefty-looking she-wolf with a dark auburn fur, she'd moved daintily to the edge of the cargo van and minced, despite her weight, down the street. The other 2 young people, a lanky, dark-haired boy and a scrawny girl with mouse-brown hair, had made the change and loped up the hill after Tara, and then we all had moved as quietly as we could to the rear of Marcone's estate. Surrounded by a high stone wall, the property occupied an entire block, bonded on all 4 sides by individual streets. None of us had known the layout of Marcone's place, so we had chosen to approach from the rear. On general principles of sneakiness, I hadn't thought it would be wise to walk in the front door, so I had dispatched Tara to find us a way in, while I had remained behind with the alphas. I found myself tapping my fingers on my thighs as I crouched restless. Soon I realized that if I was tense, the would-be werewolves would be twice as keyed up. The dark-furred one, Billy, I thought, rose to his paws and started away in the opposite direction from which Tara had gone. Georgia growled at him, Billy growled back, and the other male rose to follow him. Great, I thought. I couldn't afford to let alphas wander off now, no matter how restless they were. "Hey," I said quietly, "you can't go herring off now. If there's a way inside, Tara will find it." The wolves all turned their heads and their very human eyes toward me. Billy planted his paws stubbornly and growled. "Oh, don't give me that," I snapped, glaring at him with them in his eyes. "You promised you'd play this my way, Billy. This isn't time to be messing around." Billy's stance became less certain. I beckoned all of them toward me. If I could keep them listening until Tara got back, I could at least be sure they'd be around when I needed them. "Huddle up, everyone," I said. "I want to go over some things before we go in." There was a brief silence and a crowd of furry, heavy bodies and a snuffling of wet noses. 10 ears pricked up and rotated toward me, then 10 bright human eyes fastened on me from lupine faces. I suppressed the sudden urge to say, "Good evening, class. I'm your teacher, Mr. Dresden," and instead put on my most serious expression. "You all know what's at stake tonight," I said, "and that we could all get killed. We're going to be confronting a bunch of law enforcement people who have got hold of some magic that's as black as anything I've ever seen, and are using it to turn themselves into wolves. They've lost control of the power they've grabbed. They're killing people, and if we don't stop them, they're going to kill a lot more, especially me, because I know too much. I'm a danger to them. But I don't want that. I don't want anyone to get killed, not us and not them. Maybe they deserve it, maybe not." The power they grabbed has turned into a drug for them, and they're not really in control of themselves anymore. I just don't think we'd be much different than them if we went in there planning to wipe them out. It isn't enough to stand up and fight darkness. You've got to stand apart from it, too. You've got to be different from it. I cleared my throat. Hell, I'm not good at this. Go for the belts if you can, just like I did in the alley. Once their belts are off, they're not going to be as crazy, and maybe we'll be able to talk to them. I glanced up at the wall and backed down. Just don't get killed, guys, and do what you have to stay alive. It's your first priority, and if you've got to kill them, do it. Then don't hesitate. There was a chorus of growls from around me, led by the wolf Billy, but that was the great thing about being the only human being there. I was the only one who could talk. There wouldn't be any arguments, even if they disagreed. Their enthusiasm was a little intimidating. If you were any louder, wizard, Tara's soft voice came from behind me. We might as well walk through the front gate. I jumped and looked up to see Tara, naked and human, crouched down a few feet away. I wish you wouldn't do that, I hissed at her. Did you find a way in? Yes, she said, a place where the wall has crumbled. But it is far for you to walk along the eastern wall toward the front of the property. We must run if we are to get inside in time. I grimaced. I'm not in any shape to run anywhere. It would seem you have little choice. I also saw many streaks of light across the front gate, and there are black boxes with glass eyes every 70-80 paces. They do not see the crumbled place. It is a fortunate position. Cameras. Hell. Come, wizard, Tara said, crouching down on all fours. We have no time to waste if you were to join us. The pack can cover the distance in moments, but you must hurry. Tara, I've had a rough couple of days. I'd fall over in about 2 minutes if I tried to run somewhere. The woman blinked passionless, amber eyes at me. Your point? I'm going over the wall right here, I said. Tara looked at the wall and shook her head. I cannot bring the pack over that wall. They are not strong enough to keep changing back and forth, and they have no hands in their wolf form. Just me, then. I guess you all can find me. Tara snorted. Of course, but it is foolish for you to go over the wall alone. What if the cameras see you? Let me worry about the cameras, I said. Help me up to the top. Then you and the Alphas circle around rendezvous with me. Tara scowled at the expression dark. I think this foolish, wizard. If you are too wounded to run, then you are too wounded to go on alone. We don't have time, I said with a glance up at the moon, to argue about this. Do you want my help or not? Tara let out a sound somewhere between a snarl and for a moment, tension in her muscles made them stand out hard against her skin. One of the Alphas let out a little whimper and stepped away from us. Very well, wizard, Tara said. I will show you the nearest camera and help you over the wall, but do not move from where you land. We do not know who is on the other side of the wall or where. Don't worry about me, I said. Worry about yourself. If there's a good way through the wall, Denton might show up there, too, to go in, or McFinn might. McFinn, Tara said, traces of pride in her voice and fear in her eyes, will not even notice that the wall got in his way. I grimaced. Just show me the camera. Tara led me forth through the dark, silent, and naked, looking as though she didn't mind the cold evening at all. The grass was damp, plush, and deep. Tara pointed out the small, silent square of the video camera settled in the wall across the street, and almost entirely hidden by the shadows of the trees. I licked my lips and leaned toward the camera, keeping my own form obscured by the bushes. I squinted my eyes and drew in my will, trying to focus. My head started to pound at once, and I felt sweat break out beneath my arms and across my forehead. Hexing up anything mechanical is usually fairly simple. The field of magic that surrounds practitioners of the art plays havoc with the implements of technology. A passing thought on the right kind of day can blow out a cellular telephone or kill a photocopier. This was the wrong kind of day. That field of energy around me was severely depleted from its usual levels, and the metaphysical muscles I would normally use to manipulate that energy were screaming in agony, reflected in pains throughout my body. But I needed to get inside, and I really did think that I wouldn't be able to make it all the way around the property. I was running on empty already, and too much more would leave me, gasping like a fish out of water and wishing I was at home in bed. I forced calm my thoughts and focused all the energy I had, and it hurt me, starting at my head and spreading to the weary aches of my knees and elbows, but the energy built and built, with the pain till I could hold it together no longer. Malavazio, I whispered, and pushed my hand at the square shape like a grade school girl throwing a baseball wrong-handed. The power I gathered, though it felt like it was about to split me at the seams, rushed out an almost impotent little hiccup of magic and swirled drunkenly toward the security camera. For a long minute, nothing happened. Then there was a flash of light and a tiny shower of sparks from the rear of the box. Smoke drizzled up from the camera in a quavering plume, and I felt a small surge of triumph. At least I had something left in me, even if it was an aneurysm causing labor to perform the mildest tasks. All right, then, I said a second later, my voice somewhat thready. Let's go. We looked around and made sure no cars were about, and then Tara, the Alphas, and I rushed across the road through some of the decorative leafy bushes to the high stone wall. Tara laced her fingers together for a stirrup. I put my good foot into it and pushed it up hard. She heaved me up and half threw me over the wall. I caught myself at the top. I saw a car's headlights coming and swiftly rolled down the other side, falling heavily to damp, muddy earth. It was dark. It was really dark. I was crouched at the base of the wall underneath the spreading canopy of bare trees and stubborn sycamore leaves. Moonlight filtered through the random places, but it only served to make the dark spots all the more gloomy. My own black leather duster was utterly invisible, and I remembered reading somewhere that the gleam of my eyes and teeth would be the most likely to give me away, but since I didn't feel like sitting in the dark with my eyes closed, I didn't. Instead, I crouched and I got my confiscated gun ready in one pocket and took my ace in the hole out of the other, getting that ready as well. I shivered and worked hard to remind myself not to be afraid. Then I waited in the darkness for my allies, and waited and waited. Time passed, and I knew that a minute could feel like an hour, so I began counting, one number for every deliberate breath. The wind blew through the trees, brisk and cool. Leaves rustled, and droplets of rainwater fell from the trees around me, making little pattering sounds as they struck my new coat. They clung to the leather in tight beads and caught pieces of moonlight in them, brilliant against the black. The smell of rich earth and damp stone rose up with the wind, and for a moment it almost felt as though I was in a forest rather than a crime lord's private estate in the north end of Chicago. I took deep breaths, a little comforted by the illusion, and kept on counting, and waited. Nothing happened. No wolves, no sounds, nothing. It wasn't until I got to 100 that I started to get really nervous. My stomach began a slow twist that made weak sensations lace out through my arms and legs like slivers of ice. Where was Tara? Where were the alphas? It shouldn't have taken nearly so long to get inside the wall and then cover the distance back to me. Though the estate was huge, the distance surely meant little to the flashing speed of a wolf. The evening had obviously been moving entirely too smoothly. I thought something had gone wrong. I was alone. Anyway. Sorry, I had to take a moment. Chapter 29. Alone. It's one of those small words that means entirely too much, like fear or trust. I'm used to working alone. It goes with the territory. Wizards of my level and skill and strength. Well, my usual levels are few and far between. Maybe no more than 24 in the United States, with a slightly higher concentration between them in Europe, Africa, and Asia. But there is a difference between working alone and finding yourself facing a hatful of foes on a cold night while wounded in the dark and practically helpless. It took me about 10 seconds to become acutely aware of that difference. Fear settled in comfortably. Fear was something I was used to. I was able to think past it, to focus on my predicament. Yay for me. My body reacted the same old way, keying up for a fight or flight while I forced my breathing to stay even. The smart thing to do would be to run, to turn, and go back to the van to have Susan drive me the hell away. Granted, I probably couldn't even climb up the wall on my own, but I could have tried. But I was already committed. I was here to do battle with the forces of evil, such as they were, and I dropped the challenge to them, not the other way around. Besides, if Tara and the kids were in trouble, I was the only one that could help them. I climbed to my feet, getting out the gun, and moved forward through the woods in a direction that seemed perpendicular to the lines of stone behind me. The woods were thick, sycamores and poplars giving way to evergreens with scratchy, low branches. I slipped through them the best I could, moving as quietly as I could manage. I didn't think I made much more noise than the wind did as it rattled the branches and the fallen leaves and stirred more droplets of water to fall. In time, maybe 3 or 4 minutes, I came to the edge of the woods and looked down to the gentleman Johnny Marcone's estate. It was magnificent, something out of a Hoven Garden magazine. You could have put a small golf course in Marcone's backyard. A long ways off at the front of the property, Marcone's huge white house stood serene and flawless, artistically illuminated by dozens of lights, with a veranda or patio larger than a dance floor plotted out at its rear. Behind it, 3 enormous square plots side by side contained lit and lovely gardens. Terraced down by a gently sloping hill toward me, and at the hill's base was a pretty little vale, and there lay a small pond, which I realized after a moment was an enormous concrete-lined swimming pool, lit from beneath the surface. The pool was irregularly shaped, and in one corner of the pool stirred near the surface. Steam lay thick over the water. Standing stately sentinel toward the center of the vale was a ring of evergreens, thick and stocky trees that concealed whatever was at their center. Two round hillocks decorated the left side of the vale's landscape, one of them surrounded by what looked like a replica of a small ruined shrine or temple, all cracked in marble and fallen columns. The whole place was well lit both by silver moonlight and lighting placed at strategic intervals. The lawn was immaculate, and trees dotted the grounds in the sort of careless perfection only an army of expensive gardeners could have maintained. And they say that crime doesn't pay. I took a position behind a screen of trees and brush and looked around the grounds with careful, stealthy caution. I didn't have long to wait. There was a rush of motion from beneath one of the trees on the far side of the estate, and a swift form, a dark-furred wolf, Billy, I thought, flew from beneath one tree and toward a patch of dark shadow on the grass not 20 feet from me. I tensed and started to rise from my hiding place in the brush to call out to the wolf as he ran. A bright red dot of light appeared against the wolf's fur. There was a hollow sound, something I could barely hear, like a politely covered cough. I saw the wolf jerk as a flash of blue feathered against its fur, and the beast tumbled to a roll and fell to the ground. It struggled for a moment back to its feet and reached for the dart in its flank with its jaws. Its balance wavered, and the wolf staggered one side and fell. I could see its chest heaving, and one of the rear legs twitched spasmodically. I thought the beast's eyes, Billy's eyes, focused on me for a moment, then glazed over and went vacant. "Nice shot," called a deep, tense voice. In the ring of evergreens there was motion, and Denton appeared, walking out of the grass toward the fallen wolf. His dark, short hair was immaculately rigid. I couldn't see the veins in his forehead despite the bright light. It was a subtle change in him, one of several. His tie was loose, his jacket was unbuttoned. He moved with less steel in his backbone, more fire in his belly. Are you freaking serious? That might be moving furniture. Anyway, I thought for a minute there, I thought, hey, thunder. There was an animal quality to him, a surety and a savagery of purpose that had been uncertain before. And what it meant was a lot more significant than the changes that showed on its exterior. I'm going to take another drink. I just swallowed my own spit and didn't like it. I'll try that again. His restraint was gone. Whatever last remnants of doubt or regret had enabled him to maintain his own self-control and some measure of control of the other Hexen wolf had vanished with the blood frenzy in the full moon garage. Excuse me. It was in every line of him now, in each step, every flicker of his eyes. The man had become a predator. From the evergreens behind him appeared the rest of the Hexen wolf, and Ben, now dressed only in a white dress shirt and grey business skirt, her legs dark and rippling with muscle in the moonlight. Harris, his ears still sticking out, his freckles dark spots against the pale skin, his manner restless and hungry. And Wilson, still in his wrinkled suit, but with the shirt unbuttoned, his potbelly overlapping his belt of dark fur around his waist, and he stroked and patted it with his fat fingers. His mouth was set in an odd, dangerous grin. Anyway. Denton moved across the grass to the fallen wolf and nudged it with his toe. 6, he said. Did you count 6? 6, Ben confirmed, her voice throaty. Can we have them now? She reached Denton's side and pressed up against him, lifting one leg to rub against his, bearing it to the top of her thigh. She did. Not yet, Denton said. He looked around him thoughtfully, and my gaze followed his. Scattered around the circle, perhaps 50 yards diameter, were several dark lumps I had taken to be indentations in the ground, shadows cast by the moon and the ground's lighting. I looked again and saw with a surge of fearful understanding that they weren't indentations. They were the wolves, my allies. The dark patch Billy had been running for gave a little whimper, and I thought I saw the moon glint off George's tawny coat. I looked around and counted the fallen. 6. I couldn't tell them apart very well. Couldn't tell which of them, if any, was Tara, but I counted 6 fallen wolves upon the ground. All of them, I thought. With a panic rush of fear, all of them had been taken. Come on, Harris said, his voice tight and strained. Fuck, McFinn, he isn't showing up. Let's take them out, all of them, and go find Dresden. We'll get to your belt soon enough, kid, Wilson snorted, his finger stroking the fur belt over his belly. If you hadn't been so stupid as to lose it. Harris snarled, and Denton shook Ben from his side to get between the other two men. Shut up. Now, we don't have time for this, Harris. We'll go after the wizard as soon as we can. Wilson, keep your fat mouth shut. If you like your tongue where it is, and both of you, back off. The men made low, growling noises, but they took steps away from one another. I licked my lips. I was shaking. The gun felt heavy in my hand. There were only 4 of them, I thought. They weren't more than 30 feet away. I could start shooting right now, but if I got lucky, I could down them all. They were werewolves, but they weren't invincible. I slipped the safety off the pistol during a steadying breath. It was a damn fool thing to do, and I knew it. Life is not the movies. It wasn't like I'd be able to shoot them all before they could draw and shoot back, but I didn't have much of a choice. Denton turned toward the first hillock with its artfully ruined temple and waved. "All right," he called, "that's all of them." A pair of shapes appeared in the lights that shone on the temple, and then came down the hill toward Denton and Hexenwolfen. Marcone was dressed in a flannel shirt, jeans, and hunter's vest, and he bore a gleaming rifle with an enormous scope mounted on it in one hand. Hendricks, hulking beside him in muscle-bound silence, was dressed in what looked like black military fatigues, bearing the gun I'd seen earlier, a knife, and various other gear. Hendricks' eyes flickered over Denton and his associates warily. I stared at Marcone in shock. It took me a moment to pick my jaw off the ground to piece together what was going on. Marcone didn't know. He didn't know that Denton and company were out to get him. They must have blamed the other killings on McFinn and the Alphas. So now Denton had Marcone and the Alphas there. Once McFinn arrived, he'd be able to kill everyone he wanted dead, everyone who knew what was going on, and be able to make up any story he damn well pleased. Everyone but me, that is. He did not as yet have his hands on me. These were all we saw in the... I gotta slip back in my character. Give me a sec. I gotta drink. Okay. I'm sorry for all the thuds, by the way. These are all we saw on the monitors, Marcone corrected. There was a malfunction in camera 6 at the rear line of the property. Mr. Dresden and such malfunctions tend to go hand in hand. Damn it. Are you sure the wizard isn't one of them? Denton demanded. One of these wolves? I think not, Marcone answered, but I suppose anything is possible. Denton scowled. Then he's not here. If he truly offered you a challenge, he's here, Marcone said, his tone completely confident. I'm certain of it. And he just watched his werewolf friends get shot down? Denton asked. Wolves run faster than men, Marcone pointed out. Possibly he hasn't caught up to them yet. He could even be watching us now. You're giving him too much credit, Denton said, but I saw his eyes shift instinctively toward the blackness of the growth of the woods. If I stood up, he'd be looking right at me. I froze, holding my breath. Am I? Marcone smiled and leaned down to pluck the feathered dart from Billy's furry flank. These tranquilizers likely won't hold these beasts for very long. Decisions need to be made, gentlemen, and if you were to hold your end of the bargain, you had better get to work producing. I don't know if Marcone noticed Ben's sudden tension, the way she slid her hands over her stomach, but I did. Kill these dogs now, she said in a low, heated voice. It prevents complications later in the evening. Marcone hissed. Short-sighted. Let McFinn tear them to pieces when he arrives, and any medical examiner won't bother to look for the tranquilizers. If one of you does it, it will create awkward questions once forensics take a look at things. And I thought that was the point of you coming to me with this offer, reducing questions. Ben lifted her lips away from her teeth, and I saw the tips of her breasts stiffen beneath her white shirt. I hate slimy scum like you, Marcone, she purred, sliding her hand from her thigh up over her hip and beneath the buttons of her shirt. Marcone's eyes narrowed on her, and as though connected to the crime lord by the telepathic leash, Hendricks made one simple motion, a shift of his forearm that chambered around the gun with a little click-clack. Denton gave Marcone a sharp look and took hold of Ben's wrist with his hand. The woman tensed for a second, resisting him, but then she allowed Denton to draw her hand away from the belt that surely beneath her shirt. Denton released her, and Ben lowered her hands, visibly relaxing. Marcone and Hendricks never so much as blinked or broke a sweat. Fragile situations like this one were evidently second nature to them. I let the breath out that I'd been holding for a long time. 6-1 and ready for a fight. If I attacked them now, I didn't have a prayer. If I tried to move to fade back in the trees, they would be likely to notice me. Damn. Denton glanced at the trees once more, and I held my breath again. Don't worry, Marcone, he said. We'll turn the wizard over to you once we find him. No questions asked. That being the case, Marcone said, I suggest you start looking while I make preparations for Mr. McFinn. Please remember that I want Dresden alive, if possible. My throat constricted. If I hadn't been holding my breath, I think I would let out a squeak. What in the world could John Marcone want with me after the incident in the parking garage? Nothing good, certainly. Nothing I wanted to think about. Damn, this night was getting spookier all the time. Of course, Mr. Marcone, Denton said, his tone a little too polite. Do you have any suggestions of where we should start looking? Marcone ignored the sarcasm, flicked the switch on the sight of his rifle, and pointed negligently at the tree line. Over there ought to do. The red dot of the laser sight settled on the leaf 6 inches to the left of my head, and the 3 pulse of fear in my chest turned into icy white streak of terror. Damn, damn, damn. Chapter 30. If I ran, I would be seen and pursued, and likely torn apart. If I remained where I was hidden, I would be found, then torn apart, or shot, or tranquilized, or given to Johnny Marcone. A poor set of choices, but I wasn't getting any better ones by sitting on my ass, so I got to my feet underneath me and started easing back into the woods, the confiscated semi-automatic still in my hand. "Hold it," Denton said. "Did you hear that?" "What?" Ben asked. I could hear the sudden eager tension in her voice, and I struggled not to make any more noise as I hurried my pace back into the shelter of the deeper trees. "Quiet." Denton strung. I froze in place. Wind and rain were the only sounds for a few moments in the chilly autumn night. "Over there," Denton said after a moment. "I think I heard over that way." "Could be a raccoon, a squirrel, or a cat," Wilson suggested. "Don't be naive." "Don't be naive," Marcone said. Came Marcone's voice, laced with scorn. "It's him." There was an immediate sound of a slide being worked on a handgun around being chambered into place. "Move forward," said Denton. "That way we'll find out and we'll take him. Watch yourself. We don't know all of what he can do. Don't take any chances." His voice came closer as he spoke, and I nearly bolted. There was a chorus of assenting sounds, and another couple of weapons being readied. Footsteps came toward me through the grass. After that I did bolt, just stood up and ran bent over as low as I could. There was a shout from behind me and a bark of a gun being fired. I pointed the semi-automatic above me, afraid to fire back at the terror of one of the Alphas by mistake, and pulled the trigger twice. The gunshots must have surprised them because Denton and others scattered for cover behind the nearest trees. I ran deeper into the woods, marshalling my thoughts. I had gained a little time, but time to do what? Running would only put me up against the stone wall. I doubted I'd be able to climb it with a bum foot and a wounded shoulder, but I could only play the rabbit in the woods for so long before I was found. Damn it, I thought, I'm no rabbit. It was about time the hunters became the hunted around here. I moved ahead, silent and intent now, and scanned around me, searching for the sort of place I would need. I found it almost at once, an inward curving hollow at the base of a large tree, and slid into it, nestling into the wood's embrace. I put my head down, hiding the paleness of my face and the gleam of the whites of my eyes, and listened. They came forward quietly and without any lights flickering around the edges of my vision. Maybe Denton and his cronies were getting used to the darkness. They were moving forward in a ragged line, 20 or 30 paces apart, and somehow keeping mostly parallel. They were all still on 2 feet by the sound of the steps. Thank my lucky stars, if they'd gone wolf form, they might have had me, of course, and 2 legs they still had hands free to hold guns of their own. There were pros and cons to everything, I suppose. I held my breath when footsteps approached me. They came within 10 feet, then 5. I felt the brush stir when someone walked past me no more than a foot away, making leaves brush up against me. They stopped right there, and I heard a little wolfing sound. Sniffing, I thought of the aroma of my brand-new leather jacket and clenched my jaws down slightly. Tension thrumming through me, making my legs shake. About 10 billion years went by. Then whoever it was began walking again forward and past me. I would have let out a sigh of relief if the most dangerous part of my plan wasn't still to come. I got up from a hiding place, stepped forward, and jammed the barrel of the semi-automatic against the back of the neck of the person before me. It was Denton. His back arched, and he sucked in a stunned breath. "Quiet," I said. "Don't move." Denton hissed but froze in place. "Dresden, I should kill you right now. Try it," I said, and thumped the back of the hammer of the gun. But after the loud noise, remembered to keep going down the tunnel toward the light. Denton's shoulders shifted a fraction. I said, "Don't move your arms at all. Reach for that belt and I'll kill you before you're halfway to Furry." Denton dropped the gun. Denton moved his fingers close enough to the safety on his gun and let it fall. "Not bad, Dresden," he said, "but this isn't going to do you any good. Put the gun down. We can talk about this." Smooth, polite, nice delivery. I said, "They teach you that in the FBI?" "Don't make this any harder on yourself than it has to be, Dresden," Denton said, his voice toneless. "You can't get out of this." "They always say that," I said, and I used my free hand, though it made my shoulder twitch, to take him by the collar and hold him steady. My arms feeling a little weak, I said, "Don't do anything to make me slip." I felt his body tense at my words. "What are you doing, Dresden?" "You and me were going to turn around," I said, with a little shove of the gun against the neck, to emphasize the point. "And then you're going to order all of your people out of the trees and back into the light. They'll each call to you from there, so they'll know they're in front of me. Then we're going to go see them." "What do you hope to accomplish here, Dresden?" Denton said. I let go of his neck, pressed close, and reached around him to remove the wolf belt from his middle. I saw his jawline shift as I took the belt away, but he remained still and quiet, his hands in the air. "I was just going to ask you the same thing, Denton," I said. "Now call your buddies out of the trees." Denton may have been a cool customer, maybe a treacherous sneak, maybe a murderer, but one thing, he wasn't a fool. He called out to the other 3 agents and told them to get out of the trees. "Dent, Wilson Carter, you okay?" "Just do it," Denton answered. "It'll all be clear in a minute." They did it. I heard them move out of the woods and called him from the cut, level grass of Marcone's estate. Now, I said, walk. Don't trip, because I swear to God I'd rather blow your head off over a misunderstanding than get sucker punched by a trick and get killed. Maybe you should put the safety on, Denton said, because if you kill me, you'll never get out of here alive. I hate it when the bad guys have a point, but I choose to err on the side of Denton getting blown apart and left the safety where it was. I slung the wolf boat over my shoulder, took Denton's collar again, and said, walk. He did. He walked out of the deep darkness of the woods into the light. I kept at the edge of the darkness and put a tree's trunk to my back, keeping Denton between me and the bad guys. They were spread out, the three of them, in a half circle about 30 feet away, and they all had guns. It would have been one hell of a marksman who could get me with Denton's broad, solid form in front of me and the shadows veiling me, but I didn't take any chances. I crouched down behind him some, leaving nothing but the corner of my head and one eye showing. At least that way, I thought if they shot me, I'd never feel it. Hi guys, I said a bit lamely. I've got your boss. Put the guns down, take your belts off, and walk away from them nice and slow or I kill him. A part of me, probably the smarter part, groaned at my course of action and started cataloging the number of federal and state criminal codes I was breaking into tiny pieces by taking a member of the FBI hostage and threatening to kill him and attempting to take hostage 3 more. I stopped counting broken laws at 10 and waited to see the Hex and Wolfman's response. To hell with you, Ben, snarled. The silver-haired young woman dropped her gun, ripped off her shirt, revealing a torso that was impressive in a number of senses, and another wolf hide belt. I'll tear your fucking throat out myself. Deborah, Denton said, his voice strained. Don't, please. Go ahead, bitch, growled Harris. His big ears created half-moon shadows of blackness on the sides of his head. Denton, buys it, we all get promoted. Hell, the wizard will probably shoot you while he's at it. Ben rolled around toward Harris, lifting her hands as though she would strangle him, fingers clenched like talons. Shut up, I said, both of you. Put your guns down now. Harris sneered at me. You won't, Dresden. You don't have the guts. Roger, Denton said very quietly, you're an idiot. The man's in a corner. Now put down your gun. I blinked, surprised at the unexpected support. It made me instantly suspicious that Marcone was out of sight. Did not mean he was out of mind either. Where was he? Crouched somewhere, aiming that rifle at me. I kept an eye out for bright red dots. That's right, I appended to Denton's statement. You are an idiot. Drop the gun. You too, Wilson, I added, glancing at the overweight agent. You and Ben take the belts off too. Leave them on the ground. Do it, Denton confirmed. I got a little more nervous. The man was relaxed now, not resisting me. His voice was solid, confident, unimpressed. That was bad. Denton's pack obeyed him, if reluctantly. Ben dropped the belt to the ground in the same way. Scrooge might have let it fall, a string of diamonds, a visible ache in the motion. Wilson grunted. His belt came unfastened. His belly flopped out a little as the catch released. He left it on the ground by his gun. Harris glared at me, but he lowered his gun too. Now step back, all of you. Yes, Denton said. Harris, Wilson, step back to the trees and bring out what we left there. Hey, I said, what the hell are you talking about? Don't move, any of you. Harris and Wilson smirked at me and began walking toward the trees. Get your asses back here. Shoot at them, Mr. Dresden, Denton said, and you will have to take your gun off of me. I think I can reach it if you do that and turn this into a fight. You are resourceful and intelligent, but you're also wounded. I don't think you could overcome me in hand-to-hand. I glanced between 2 men and Denton. Damn it, I said, what are you up to, Denton? Don't try anything funny, anything at all, you're not going to live to regret it. I'm with the FBI. I don't do anything that could be construed as funny, Mr. Dresden. I swore quietly, and I could all but feel Denton's mouth stretch into a smile. Why, I asked him, why did you get involved with these belts? Why are you doing this? Denton began to shrug, but evidently thought better of it. Too many years of seeing men like Marcone laugh at the law, of seeing people hurt by them, death, misery brought on by him, and people like him. I was so tired of just watching. I decided to stop him and men like him by killing them, I said. I was given the power, I used it. What gives you the right to mandate their deaths? What gives them the right, Denton asked, to kill? Should I have to stand by and let them slaughter Dresden? If I can stop it, I have the power and the responsibility to use it. I felt a little shiver run through me as the words struck close to home. And the other people, the innocents who have died? Denton hesitated, but his reply was quiet. It was unfortunate. An accident. It was never my intention. The belts do more than make you fuzzy, Denton. They change the way you think, the way you act. I can control my people, Denton began. Like you did last month, I asked. He swallowed and said nothing. And you knew, didn't you? You knew I'd find out. That's why you sent me to the Full Moon Garage. The vein in his forehead pulsed. After the deaths, I was warned about a governing body, a sort of magic police, the White Council, that you worked for them. I almost laughed. Yeah, well, someone told you part of the story anyway, Denton. That's why you messed up McFinn's circle, isn't it? You needed a patsy and you turned McFinn loose, knowing that the council would suspect him. The street wolves for the cops and McFinn for the council. Denton snarled. Necessary sacrifices. There was work to be done, Dresden. Oh, yeah? As one of the aforementioned sacrifices, I don't find myself agreeing with you. I said, to hell with the law, right? That's what you're saying. You're above the law, like Marcone. Denton grew tense again, turned his head a bit toward me, like he might have been listening. I pressed him hard, desperate to reach him. If I could, I might get out of the situation after all. These belts, man. The power they've given you, it's bad. You can't handle it. It's gotten into your head and you aren't thinking straight. Give them up. You can still walk away from this. Do the right thing. Come on, Denton. You don't throw everything you have fought for all those years. There's a better way than this. Denton was silent for a long time. Harrison Wilson disappeared in the thick ring of pine trees. Ben watched as her eyes bright, her body muscled and firm in the moonlight. She looked from the pair of us to the fur bell on the ground alternately, and her breast became ragged. Look at her, I said. Those belts are like a drug. Is this the kind of person she was? Is this the kind of person you want to be? Wilson, Harris, were they always like this, like they are now? You're turning into monsters, man. You've got to get out of this before you are all the way gone. Denton closed his eyes and then shook his head once. You're a decent man, Mr. Dresden, but you've got no idea how the world works. I'm sorry you've gotten in the way. He opened his eyes again. Necessary sacrifices. Damn it, I said, don't you see that this won't do you any good? Even if you do get away with wiping out everyone here tonight, Murphy's going to piece together what happened. Denton glanced at me and said like a mantra, necessary sacrifices. I swallowed, suddenly more cold than I had been. It was eerie the way Denton said the words, so matter-of-fact, calm, and rational. There was no doubt in him when he should have been afraid. Only fools and madmen knew that kind of certainty, and I had already noted that Denton was no fool. Harrison Wilson emerged from the trees carrying something between them. Someone hooded, arms and legs bound. Harry had a knife in one hand. It was against the base of the hood, which looked to be a pillowcase. His big ears and freckles were at sharp odds with the arrogant competence with which he held the knife. Damn you, I said quietly. Denton said nothing. Ben's eyes glittered in the moonlight, bright and vacant of anything but lust and hunger. The two agents brought the prisoner over, and Wilson dropped the legs. Harris kept the knife steady while the overweight man went to remove the hood, but I'd already seen the cast on the prisoner's arm. Murphy's face was pale, her golden hair bleached to silver by the moonlight, and was falling down around her eyes. Her mouth was covered in cloth or duct tape, one of the two, and there was blood clotting around the base of one nostril, a bruise purpling over one eye. She blinked for a moment, then kicked at Wilson, with her legs bound as ineffective, and when Harris snarled and pressed the knife against her throat, she stopped struggling. Her blue eyes glared in fury at Harris and then Wilson, and then they settled on me and widened. Kill me, Mr. Dresden, Denton said quietly. Harris will cut the lieutenant's throat. Ben will go for her gun, as will Wilson. Likely they will kill you, and then they will kill all these wolves you brought with you, your allies. But even if you get all of us first, Murphy will be dead, and you'll be holding the weapon that killed 4 agents of the FBI. You bastard, I said. You cold-blooded bastard. Necessary sacrifices, Mr. Dresden, Denton said, but it wasn't a calm phrase anymore. It was eager, somehow warmth curving around through the words like a lover's hands dropped their gun. No, I said, I won't. He wouldn't kill another cop, would he? Then Murphy dies, Denton said. Harris, the redhead's shoulder bunched, and Murphy tried to scream through the gag. I cried out and swung the barrel of the gun toward Harris. Denton's elbow came back into my gut, and his fist snapped up into my nose, casting a field of stars across my vision. The gun went off, pointed somewhere, but then Denton slapped it from my hand, drove another blow into my throat, and sent me sprawling to the ground, unable to breathe or move. Denton stooped to recover the gun and said, You should have shot me while you had the chance, Mr. Dresden, instead of moralizing. He pointed at me and watched his lips curve into a slow, hungry smile. Beautiful moon tonight, he said. Sort of reminds me of a story. How did it go? I tried to tell him where he could stick the moon in his story, but it came out in a strangled gasp. I still couldn't move. It hurt too much. Denton thumbed the back of the trigger and sighted down the barrel at my left eye and said, Ah, yes, I'll huff and I'll puff and I'll blow your house down. Goodbye, wizard. Death by nursery tale. Hell bells. Hang on 1 second. I'm going to take it. Had a little cramp in my hand. I apologize for all the beating and banging that you might be hearing above. I am so sorry. It might be breaking the mood, I'm afraid. Chapter 31. The barrel of Denton's gun looked bigger and deeper than the national debt as it swung to bear on my face. His gray eyes glinted down the sights at me. And I saw the decision to pull the trigger flash across them. Before he could, I met his eyes hard, shoved myself out toward him with a sudden screaming pain in my temples, and locked him in a soul gaze. There was a rushing sensation as there usually was, a feeling of movement forward then down, like being sucked into a whirlpool. I rode the sensation to Denton's head, a brief doubt crossing my mind. Maybe getting shot would have been better than wading heart deep into Denton's soul. I can't describe what I found there. Very well. Try to imagine a place, a beautifully ordered structure like the Parthenon or the Monticello. Imagine that everything is balanced, everything's in proportion, everything is smooth and sincere, thick and blue skies overhead, green grass all around, puffy white clouds and flowers and children running and playing. Now add a couple 100 years of wear and tear to it, dull the edges, round the corners a little, imagine water stains and worn spots where the wind had gotten to it, turn the skies dirty brown with smog, kill the grass and replace it with tall, ugly ragweed. Ditch the flowers and leaving their places only dried up skeletal rose vines, aged the male children to adult winos, faces haggard with despair and self-loathing and flushed with drink. And the girls into tired, jaded strumpets, faces hard, eyes cold and calculated, give the place of beauty an aura of rage and feral abandon where the people walk about, watch the shadows like hungry cats waiting to pounce. And then, after all that, after all the cares and trials and difficulties of the world the inhabits have been fairly represented, coat everything in a thick, black, sticky sludge that smells like swamps and things that attract dun-colored flies, painted on, make it a coating that emphasizes the filth, the decay, and despair all around, and that brings out that painful decline to the utmost degree. The sludge makes things stronger and more bitter, more rotten, more putrid all at the same time. That was Denton inside, a good man jaded by years and poisoned by the power that had taken control of him, until that good man had been buried and only the filth and decay remained, until the existence of the man who had been once only a bitter reminder that made the man who was now seem all the more downfallen by comparison. I understood Denton's pain and rage, and I understood how the dark power he had taken had pushed him over the edge. There was an image of him kneeling at someone's feet as the wolf fur belt was passed into his hands, and then it was gone, knowing the man he had once been made clear to me the beast he had become, all violence and hunger and craving. I felt tears on my cheeks and violent shudders shaking down my spine. I could pity Denton and the others with him, but now more than ever they scared the crap out of me. I'd bought myself a few seconds at least with the soul gaze, but would it be enough to keep Denton from blowing my head off? Denton stared at me as the soul gaze broke and we were released. He wasn't reacting well to whatever it was he had seen inside of me. His face had gone white and his hand trembling. The barrel of the gun wavering every which way, he lifted his other hand to mop beads of cold sweat away from his face. "No," Denton said, white showing all around the great irises of his eyes. "No, wizard." He raised his gun. "I don't believe in hell. I won't let you." He screamed at the top of his lungs, "I won't let you." I tensed up, preparing for a futile attempt to throw myself out of the way of a speeding bullet. Yes, said a calm voice. "You will." A bright dot appeared right on the middle of Denton's chest, cheerful as a Christmas light. I twisted my head around to see Marcone walking over the turf, his weapon pointed steadily at Denton. Hendricks looming to one side. Denton's lackeys were watching Marcone with bright, steady eyes. Murphy lay on the grass, her feet toward me, her head away. I couldn't see what condition she was in. Both fear and frustration leapt into me for her sake. "Marcone," Denton said, his back straight and his eyes narrowed. "You treacherous scum." Marcone clutched with his teeth. "Our bargain was that you would bring him to me alive, not execute him. Additionally, you may want to rethink the wisdom of using your own weapons. Let McFinn kill him when he arrives." "If he arrives," Denton snarled. "My spotters," Marcone said, "tell me that the animals I sent out with them went mad with fear about 2 minutes ago, 3 miles west of here. I think it'll not take him much longer to show up, Mr. Denton." His smile widened, but his money-colored eyes grew harder. "Now, shall we cease antagonizing one another and finish our business?" Marcone lowered the rifle and flicked the laser sight off. Denton looked from me to Marcone. I saw the blackness rise up in his eyes, gather behind them, and get ready to come rolling out. "Marcone," I said, "just shoot him now." "I think we've both had enough of your attempts to divide and conquer, Mr. Treston." Marcone said, his voice bored. "You're beaten. Acknowledge it with grace." I watched a slow smile spread over Denton's face as he kept the gun pointed at my head. My voice rose by a couple of notes of alarm. "I mean it, John. I really do. I shit you not. This entire thing is about killing you." "What a vulgar reassurance," Marcone said. "Agent Denton, we have a few details to attend to. Lower your gun and let us be about them." "I don't think so," Denton said, and he pointed the gun at Hendricks and started pulling the trigger. The gun roared so many times so quickly that I couldn't tell how often Denton fired. Hendricks snapped back onto his heels and was driven flat on his back by the force of the bullet slamming into him. He didn't have time to twitch, much less scream, and he dropped like a felled tree. I felt it in the earth when his massive body hit the ground. Marcone started to raise his gun, but Wilson and Harris hurtled at his back and dragged him to the ground, pounding on him with their fists. Marcone writhed like an eel and slipped away from them, but Denton stepped into his path and thrust a gun into Marcone's face. That's enough, he said, his voice gone hoarse. Get them all and take them to the pit. McFinn will be here in any moment. I took the moment to roll to my hands and knees in an attempt to slip away unnoticed, but was brought short by a pair of muscular feminine legs. My gaze followed the legs up past the skirt to a torso encircled by a wolf belt, and then the face dominated by eyes made eerie by the lack of anything recognizably sentient in them. Ben smiled at me and set her foot against my wounded shoulder with a sadistic twist of her ankle and shove her muscled leg sent searing pain and screaming through my body, making me crumple to the ground in agony. I remembered them dragging me across the grounds. We passed into the ring of evergreens, and I remember thinking that any sounds originating in that circle of pines would be heavily muffled by their branches and needles, further muffled by the trees surrounding the property, as well as high stone wall. Gunshots, for example, might not even be heard at all off the property. It was the clearest thought I had while my shoulder exploded. The next thing I remember, I was being shoved roughly forward. I fell straight and hard into a dispassionate grip of gravity, and after long enough for me to start sucking in breath, I hit water. It was only about 6 or 8 inches deep, and beneath it was swirling soft mud. I had a brief pang for my leather duster, and then I sank down into the water, my hands slipping into the mud and getting stuck there. Cold water burbled around my face and felt nice for a moment on my aching collar. Someone grabbed me by the collar and hauled me out of the water to sit on my butt. Hands steadied me and sat my shoulder aching and my head whirling until I could squint up at who was there. Murphy dropped to one knee in the water beside me and smoothed back my damp hair. Dresden, she said, are you okay? I took a look around me. I was at the bottom of an enormous pit, square maybe 20 feet deep and twice that across. Muddy water, maybe from the rain, covered the bottom of the pit, and moon-tinted its surface was silvery brown. Directly above the pit's center, maybe 40 feet above me, was a square made of wooden planks, maybe 5 by 5. It was a hunter's platform, suspended by ropes leading from the circle of evergreens that surrounded the pit. I could see the tops of the trees against the moon and the clouds. Dresden, Murphy said again, are you all right? I'm alive, I said. I blinked at her for a second and then said, I thought they killed you. Give me 1 second, I gotta readjust my position. Her blue eyes sparkled briefly. Her hair was a mess, and her jeans and flannel shirt were rumpled and soaked with muddy water. She was shivering from the cold. I thought they had too, but they stopped as soon as Denton took you out and tossed me down here. I can't figure why they didn't do the deed themselves instead of leaving it to McFinn. I grimaced, trying to cover their tracks from the White Council. I said, Denton wants Finn to take the fall for all the deaths. I think he's lost it. I always wind up the nicest places when I hang with you, Dresden. You were tied up, I said. How'd you get loose? She had help. Someone in a slurred, heavy voice, for all the good it will do her. I turned my head to see a naked and dirty Tara West sitting on it with her back against the wall of mud. There were 5 soggy, motionless forms lying around to the alphas in their wolf shapes. Tara held their heads upon her lap up out of the water. She looked bedraggled and anguished, touching each of them and turned very gently. Her amber eyes were dull. I don't get it, I said. Why did they stick us down here? Marcone just keeps a pit trap dug in his yard? He was planning on trapping McFinn down here until morning, Tara said, when he would be vulnerable. Whoa. Murphy said, face pensive. You're saying Denton was responsible for the deaths? All of them? One way or another, yeah. I gave Murphy the rundown on Denton, the way he'd gotten the belts for him and his people, lost control of the power they'd given him, and set up the street wolves, and then McFinn to take the blame. Murphy broke out into acidic swearing. That was the angle I was missing. Damn it, no wonder Denton was so hot to keep you off the case and out of the way, and why he wanted to find you so bad after seeing at McFinn's place. That's how he kept showing up everywhere so fast he already knew someone was dead. There were shouts from above, and we looked up to see Marcone swing out from the edge of the pit. He hung limply from a rope. His eyes were closed. I watched as he was drawn up in a series of short jerks until his bowed head bumped the bottom of the hunter's platform above and was left there. What the hell? Murphy said, her voice soft. Bait, I replied. I closed my eyes for a moment. Denton stringing him up as bait for McFinn. The loop guru comes in, jumps up to get Marcone, and Denton cuts the rope and drops McFinn down in here. With us, Murphy said quietly. I felt her shivers grow a little more severe. They're going to drop that thing into this pit with us. Oh, God, Harry. Denton or one of his people must have gotten some silver bullets made, I said. They'll just let McFinn slaughter us, then shoot him up from up there. I squinted up at the edge of the pit. Pretty good plan. What can we do? Murphy asked. She hugged herself hard. I shook my head. I don't know. Nothing, Tara said quietly. Murphy and I turned to look at her. One of the alphas was stirring, barely maybe, and wobbled and fell when he tried to sit up, but at least he could hold his head up out of the water. Nothing, she repeated. We're beaten. I closed my eyes and tried to order my thoughts to push the pain and fatigue back down and put together some sort of plan. Murphy settled beside me, a shivering spot against my side. The cast arm pressed against my ribs. I opened my coat, a more polite gesture than anything else, given that it too was soaked, and slipped the edge of it around her shoulders with my arm. Her back stiffened, and she flashed me a look of indignation, but after a second just pressed as far into the coat as she could. After a moment she spoke. Her voice came out quiet, uncertain, a far cry from her normal brisk tones. I've done some thinking, Dresden. I've decided that there's a reasonable chance you aren't involved in the killings. I smiled a little. That's real big of you, Murph. Doesn't what Denton did to you sort of prove I'm not involved? She half smiled, shook her head. No, Harry, it just means that he wants to kill you and me both. It doesn't mean that I trust everything you're saying. He wants me dead, Murph. That should mean something in my favor, shouldn't it? Not really, she said, and squinted up at the top of the pit. From what I can tell, Denton wants pretty much everybody dead, and you could still be lying to me. I'm not, Murph, I said, my voice soft across my heart. I can't just take your word on it, Harry, she whispered. There's too many people dead. My men, my people, civilians, the ones I'm supposed to protect. The only way to be sure is to take you all, everyone involved, and sort things out with you behind bars. No, I said, there's much more to it than you can prove, Murph. More than what's going to stand up in court. Come on, you and me, we've known each other for years. You should be able to trust me by now, right? I should be able to, Murphy agreed, but after what I've seen, all the blood and death, she shook her head. No, Harry, I can't trust anyone anymore. She half smiled and said, I still like you, Dresden, but I can't trust you. I tried to match her smile, but my feelings were in too much turmoil. Pain, mostly. Physical pain and a deeper heart hurt, both for Murphy's sake and the sake of our friendship. She was so alone, I wanted to go to the rescue somehow to make her hurting go away. She'd have spit in my face if I tried. Murphy wasn't the sort of person who wanted to be rescued from anything. That she accepted as much comfort as my wet coat offered her came as a surprise to me. I looked around the pit intently. The other alphas were recovering, enough to sit up, but apparently not enough to move. Tara just sat with her back against the wall, defeated and exhausted. Marcone swung from the platform high above me, not moving. Though I thought I might have heard a moan from him at one point, I felt a pang of sympathy for him. However much of a heartless bastard he might be, no one deserved to dangle like bait from a hook. The alphas, Tara, Marcone, Murphy, they were all where they were because of me. It was my fault. We were there. My doing that we were all about to die. Carmichael, the poor jerk, was dead, and also because of me. And so were good cops. So was Hendricks. I had to do something about it. I need to get out of here, I told Murphy. Get me out of here. Maybe I can do something. Murphy turned her head toward me. You mean? And she waved the fingers of her unbroken arm in a vaguely mystic gesture. I nodded. I still had my ace in the hole. Something like that. Right, so how do we get you out of here? You're going to trust me, Murph? Her jaw clenched. It doesn't look as though I have much choice, does it? I smiled back at her, rose to my feet, sloshing around the water. Maybe we could dig the walls a bit, make climbing holes. You'll probably get shot once you get to the top, Murphy said. No, I said, I don't think they'll want to hang around the pit with McFinn Company. They're bloodthirsty, but not stupid. So, Murphy said, all we need to do is get you up to the top of the pit, and then you're going to go 1-on-4 with a bunch of armed FBI agent come werewolves and beat them in time to go against the Loop Guru that we couldn't stop for with all of your magic gizmos and a building full of police officers. Essentially, I answered. Murphy looked up at me and then shrugged and let out a short, defiant laugh. She stood up too, flicked her hair back from her eyes with a toss of her head and said, I guess it could be worse. There was a soft sound from above and behind me. Murphy froze, staring upward. Her eyes became most impossibly wide. I turned my head very slowly. The Loop Guru crouched at the lip of the pit, huge and gnarled and muscled and deadly. Its foaming jaws were open, showing the rows of killing teeth. Its eyes gleamed with the scarlet flames in the moonlight, and they were fastened on the dangling figure of Gentleman Johnny Marcone. I quivered, and the motion made a slight sound against the water. The beast turned its head down, and when it saw me, its eyes narrowed to glowing slits and let out a harsh, low growl. Its claws dug into the earth and the edges of the pit, tearing through it like sand. It remembered me. My heart started ripping a staccato rhythm in my chest, that same raw, sharp, primitive fear I'd felt before, the fear simply being jumped on and eaten, and returned in full force, and for the moment swept away all thoughts and plans. You had to say that, I said to Murphy, my voice wan and pale. Happy? It's worse. That's why you never say that. It could always be worse. Never say that. Never fucking say that. Chapter 32. Okay, I said, her making my voice weak. This is bad. This is very, very bad. Wish I had my pistol, Murphy said, her tone resolute. I wish we had some more time to talk things out, Harry. I glanced over to Tara. One of the alphas, the mouse-haired girl in her wolf shape, was leaning against her, whimpering. Close your eyes, Tara said softly, and covered the little wolf's eyes with her hand. Her eyes met mine without hope, without any sparkle of life. They were going to die because of me. Damn it, it wasn't fair. I hadn't done anything grossly stupid. It wasn't fair to have come so far, sacrificed so much to buy it down here and the mud like some kind of burrowing bug. I searched the pit again desperately, but it was a fiendishly simple and complete trap. There were no options down here. My eyes went up straight up. "Marcone!" I shouted. "John Marcone, can you hear me?" The limp figure suspended above me stirred weakly. "What do you want, Mr. Dresden?" "Can you move?" I asked. The loop guru growled low and started pacing a circuit of the pit, glowing eyes flashing between us down at the bottom, and Marcone trying to decide who'd rip apart first. "An arm," Marcone confirmed a few seconds later. "Do you still keep that knife on you, the one I saw at the garage?" "Denton and his associates searched me and found it, I'm afraid," came Marcone's voice. "Damn it, you're a miserable, stupid bastard for making a deal with Denton, Marcone. Now do you believe he wanted to kill you all along?" The figure above me wiggled and writhed, swinging from the ropes that held him trussed up there. "Yes, do tell me. You told me so with your last breath, Mr. Dresden. I was already rather acutely aware of that," Marcone said, his voice dry. "But perhaps I'll yet have a chance to make amends." "What are you doing?" I asked. I kept my eyes on the loop guru as it circled the pit and kept myself opposite the creature where I could see it. "Reaching for the knife they didn't find," Marcone replied. He grunted, and then I saw a flicker of light on something shiny up above me. "Forget it," Murphy said quietly, stepping close to my side as she watched Marcone. "He's just going to cut himself loose and leave us to rot here." We won't get a chance to rot," I pointed out, but I thought she was right. Marcone started to spin slowly on his rope, wriggling around till his whole body was rotating on the end of it. He began to speak, his voice calm. "Ironic, isn't it? I had planned to wait for the creature on the platform and tempt it into the pit. There are some nets ready to drop on it after that. I would have held it until morning." "You do know that it's right beneath you now, don't you, John?" I asked. "Mr. Dresden," Marcone said crossly, "I have asked you not to call me that." "Whatever," I said, but I had to remind the raw courage of the man to banter while dangling up there like a ripe peach. "I use this place to conduct noisy business," Marcone said. "The trees muffle the sound, you see. You can barely hear even shotgun blasts on the other side of the wall." He continued to spin on the rope, slow and lazily, a shadow against the moon and the stars. "Well, that's nice," I said, "and despicable." The loop guru looked down at me and snarled, and I took an involuntary step back from it. The mud wall of the pit stopped me. "Oh, quite," Marcone agreed, "but necessary." "Is there anything you're not shameless about, Marcone?" I asked. "Of course. But you don't think I'm going to tell you, do you? Now, be quiet, if you please. I don't need the distraction." And then I saw Marcone's arms curl and straighten outward. There was a flutter of metallic motion in the air and a snapping sound from the base of one of the ropes that held the platform suspended. On its far end, where it secured to one of the pine trees, the rope abruptly sagged, and the platform and Marcone with it swayed drunkenly. Marcone grunted and bounced against his ropes a few times, making the whole affair of ropes lurch about. Then the damaged line snapped and came entirely free. It whipped out toward Marcone, lost momentum, and then fell through the evening air straight down into the pit in front of me. One end was still attached to the platform above, now off-center from the pit and listing to one side. I blinked for a moment. Murphy said, "Holy shit, he did it." "I don't recommend waiting about, Mr. Dresden," Marcone said. I saw him twist his head to look at the loop guru and tense up as the beast trotted around the edge of the pit to the side closest to him. If it had noticed the rope that fallen down fallen down from above, it gave no sign. Hope lurched in my chest like sudden thunder. I grabbed onto the rope with both hands and started shinnying up like a monkey, pushing with my legs and using my mostly good arm to hang on with while I lifted my legs up higher for another grip. I got even with the lip of the pit and started rocking the rope back and forth, getting a swinging momentum going so I could leap off the rope into the ground outside the pit. The rope above creaked dangerously as I did. Our Marcone swayed back and forth, still spinning about gently. "Dresden," he shouted, "look out!" I'd been intent on my escape, given the loop guru no thought. I turned my head around to see it flying through the air toward me. I could see its gleaming eyes and felt sure I could have counted its teeth if I'd waited around for it. I didn't. I let out a yelp and let go of the rope, dropping several feet straight down before clamping onto it again. The loop guru sailed past me overhead like some obscenely graceful bat and landed on the far side of the pit with barely a sound. My fingers felt weak. I was so shocked and terrified, and I started hauling my way up again, swinging desperately as I went. The loop guru turned and focused its eyes on me again, but Marcone let out a sharp whistle, and the thing turned toward him, pricking its misshapen ears forward in a weirdly doggy mannerism before it snarled and leapt upward. I bounced on the rope. Marcone bobbed down and then back up again. The loup-garou missed him by bare inches, I think, but I didn't hang around to watch. I let out a yell and threw myself at the edge of the pit as the rope reached the apex of its swing. I missed, my belly hitting the lip of the pit, but I started clawing at the earth and kept myself from falling. I strained and kicked, thrashing and whimpering in desperation, and managed to gain a few inches, slowly worming my way up onto the ground until I got my feet underneath me. The loup-garou on the far side of the pit turned toward me and let out a sound that could best be described as a furious roar. Shouts erupted from elsewhere in the estate. Denton and his lackeys must have been watching the pit, I thought. But they're the second scariest bad guys on the field at the moment. I had bigger things on my mind. Said thing threw itself at me, and I had a few seconds to start running. I tried to arrange things that the pit would be in between me and when it landed. I was only partly successful. The loup-garou tore up the earth where I'd been standing when it came down and turned toward me again, facing me across a scant 10 feet of space from one side of the square pit to the side adjacent to it. The rope started bobbing again, then a motion full of grace and power, Tara swung up out of the pit and landed in a crouch on the ground beside me. "Go, wizard," she snarled. "Denton and the others will kill us if we're not stopped. I'll handle McFinn." "No way," I said. "You can't possibly take him on." "I know him," she responded. And then there was in her place the huge she-wolf, dark fur peppered with gray. She snarled and bounded at the loup-garou and reared up like a cat about to take a mouse, plunging toward her with abrupt speed. And that's when I saw the difference between Tara and the Alphas. Tara and the Dentons, Hexwolfen, and even Tara and the loup-garou. Where they were fast, Tara was fast and graceful. Where they were quick, Tara was quick and elegant. She made them look like amateurs. She was something more primal, more in tune with the wild than they would ever be. As the loup-garou threw itself at her, she slipped to one side like wind, threw her shoulder beneath the beast's planted forepaw and shouldered it off balance, making it stumble. It recovered and spun toward her, but she was already gone, further away from the pit. Growling defiance at the supernatural creature, it followed, impervious and snarling with rage. I heard a gunshot and a bullet smacked into one of the trees behind me. Ben's voice repeated a low, frantic chant, and I heard her words turn into animal snarls. Denton and those were coming. It was time to play the last option I had, the one I hadn't wanted to be forced to use. I wasn't sure what would happen if I did, but there wasn't much choice. I slipped my hand beneath my shirt and touched the wolf belt I'd taken from Agent Harris in the alley behind the Full Moon garage. It was vibrating beneath my fingers, warm to the touch, alive in its own fashion, and full of power and strength that had been channeled into it. I closed my eyes and let that dark, wild power spill into me, mingled with all the fear and pain and weariness inside of me. It was easy. It was easier than any magic I'd ever done. Leaping to me with a sort of hungry eagerness seeping into me, making pain and fatigue and fear vanish and replace it with nothing but strength and ferocity. Power. "Lupus," I whispered. "Lupus, lupara, luparoso." It took no more than a chant for the change to take me. It wasn't something I noticed, really, but when I opened my eyes again, things were simply as they should be, right in a way so fundamentally profound that I wondered why I'd never noticed this lack before. My vision was sharp and clear enough to count the hairs on the head of the she-wolf orienting on me a few feet away. I could hear the pounding of her heart, the restless motion of the wind, the heavy breaths of the other agents in the trees moving toward me like great clumsy cows. If the sun had suddenly risen into the sky, I could not have seen any more clearly than I did, all in glorious shades of blue and green and maroon and purple, as though God had dipped his brush into a late summer twilight and replaced all the darkness with those colors. I dropped open my mouth in a silent laugh and felt my tongue glide over the gleaming sharp tips of my fangs. What a beautiful night. I could smell blood on the air and hear the eagerness of my enemies to kill. And I felt that same hunger rising from my own heart and surging through me. It was perfect. Ben came through the trees fast and powerful, but clumsy and impatient and stupid. I could smell her excitement pitched to an almost sexual level. She was expecting an easy kill, a sudden rush over one of slow, graceless two legs, and then the hot, spurting blood, the frenzied writhing. I did not oblige her. She came through the trees. I leapt forward, and it was at her throat before she realized I was there. A quick rip hopped blood, and she yelped in agony of fear and thrown herself to one side. Stupid bitch, I'd missed the heart's blood, but she was badly hurt. Two snaps severed her hamstrings as she tried to flee and left her writhing on the ground, helpless and terrified. I felt my body thrill with the abrupt and vicious excitement. That bitch was mine now. She would live or die as I wished. The surge of power and elation that flew through me, that realization could have carried me off the earth into the silver glory of the moon and stars themselves. To the victor go the spoils. Her blood, her life was mine to take, and that was exactly how it should be. I stalked forward to finish her as it was only proper. There was a puff of breath, and then Wilson, in his wolf form, came hurtling from the woods. I slipped aside easily as he rushed by. The wounded Ben snarled and snapped blindly at him. Wilson turned on her, his fury out of control, and lashed his jaws onto her throat. Blood was a black, rich, heady smell in the moonlight, and I swayed drunk on the aroma of it. My mouth watered, jaws growing damp with saliva as I smelled the bitch's blood. And I wanted to fling myself at her, tear her apart myself as she went screaming to her death. "Those wolves!" screamed Harris. "They got out! They got Ben!" He came plunging out of the trees, gun at the ready, his nearly useless eyes wide and staring in panic. He started shooting at Wilson, who released the dead man's throat. The first bullet smashed into his left front paw to a pulp. The second and third slugs hammered into his chest, and Wilson Wolf staggered to one side, yelping in sudden agony. He twisted and strained as he went down, paw scrabbling over his own stomach till there was abruptly a balding, overweight man laying on the earth beside the dead wolf, his jacket open, his shirt unbuttoned to show the unfastened wolf belt. There was blood all over Wilson, bubbling out of his mouth. "Holy!" Harris breathed, pacing closer, his gun held up until they could see what he had done. "George? Oh, God, oh, God. I thought you were one of them. What the hell?" Agent Wilson didn't answer the red-headed kid. He simply drew his gun from his jacket and started shooting. In their human forms, they couldn't see each other very well in the dark, I thought. They both started shooting at the muzzle flashes. More blood flowed in the air along with the sharp, acrid smell of burning gunpowder. Both men went down, bleeding out into the earth, and I felt my jaws open in another smile or another sense of warm satisfaction. Idiots. Who did they think they were dealing with here? They'd been making my life miserable and the lives of others, and now they'd gotten their just deserts. It would have been better had I torn their throats out myself, admittedly. But then I thought there was still Denton to deal with. That thought cheered me. I turned and made my way into the woods, hunting the last of them. My heart was pounding hard and relaxed and steady with excitement as I melded in with the night and searched for prey. Denton and I met as I emerged from the circle of trees. He stood in the moonlight in the right shape, the only real shape, the moon streaking his brown coat shades paler and making his eyes glow. He was powerfully built as his two-legged shape and looked quick and strong. His eyes burned with the lust of the moon and the night, with the blood-need and raging wild strength just as mine did. We faced one another and it was sort of mad sort of joy in it. I would have giggled if I could have. A snarl bubbled up out of my chest like music, and I launched myself at him. We met in a tangle of scratching claws, snapping teeth, and dark fur. He was the stronger, I the quicker. The fight was silent, but no breath needed. It was a duel between us, our fangs with our swords. The thick fur rust used as shield and armor. I tasted his blood in my mouth from a slash to the ear, and it hit me like a drug, sent a fury and power coursing through me like I had never known. I threw myself at him again, and an instant later was rewarded for my over-eagerness with a hot pain in my foreleg. Scarlet black blood stained Denton's fangs in the moonlight. We separated and stalked one another in a slow circle, looking for weakness, our eyes never leaving one another. I laughed at him silently, and he answered me with such much the same way. I understood him then, and rejoiced with him in the power he had found. In that moment I loved the man, felt him as a brother, and longed to hold his throat in my jaws as the last of his blood flowed out of him. It was the most ancient of struggles, the deepest of conflicts, the survival of the fittest. One of us would live to run again, to hunt, to kill, to taste the hot blood, and it would be dead and cold on the grass. It was good. We came together like the partners in a dance, moving over the grass together. Dimly, of course, I was aware of Tara dancing with the Loup Garou, but it didn't matter to me, really. They were far away, dozens of yards, and I took no notice of them. My joy was here. We danced under the moon, and he made the first misstep. I threw myself into the opening he'd left me, knocked him to the ground with my shoulder, and he rolled and twisted away. I took his back leg right across the big tendon. He screamed his fury, but I heard fear in it, too. He scrambled to his three good-let paws again and turned to face me. But there was terrible knowledge in his eyes, just as there was in mine. We both knew that it was all over but the bleeding. I shuddered. Yes, the bleeding. He could still face me, could still hurt me if I were foolish, but I wasn't. I began to wear him down, pressing him with the short rushes and quick withdrawals that forced him to shift his weight awkwardly, stumble on his three working limbs to wear him out. As his reactions became slower, I tested him with a few flashing passes of fangs. Once more I tasted his blood. I gave him a dozen small wounds. Each taste of him made me frenzy, all that more satisfying. The night, the dance, the violence, the blood, all it was overwhelming, more than any power I'd ever felt, any medicine I'd ever tasted, and even my dreams were in the wild dreams of the never-never. It was pure beauty, pure pleasure, pure power. Victory was mine. I grew contemptuous of him as he began to whimper, to seek escape. The fool, he should have never tested himself against me, should have never tried his strength against mine. Had he yielded me at once, I would have been content to lead him, to accept him as a follower, and take me with these on the hunts. It was sad in a way, but then I could always find others. It would not be difficult to make the belts, I thought. To give them to a few people to try. Once they had, they'd never take them off again. I stalked Denton as he faltered, and I thought of running with Susan, of filling our mouths with hot, sweet blood, and of taking her in the ecstasy of the night and kill, and made me shake with anticipation. I threw myself at Denton and knocked him over and went for his throat. The fool scrambled and took his belt off, melting into the ugly two-leg form, his suit covered in blood. Please, he croaked. Oh, God, please don't kill me. Don't kill me. I snarled an answer and let my fangs tighten on his neck. I could feel his pulse against my tongue. Don't kill him. That he would beg was all beg at all was contemptuous. He should have known the law of the jungle before he started trying to rule it. Who did he think he was dealing with? Someone who would give him mercy, let him survive, crippled and pathetic, and feed him when he whined again. I wanted to laugh. My jaws tightened on his throat. I wanted to feel him die. Something told me that everything else I experienced since I had discovered my true self was child's candy next to the passing of a life beneath me. I shook with eagerness. Denton continued to beg. and it made me hesitate. I snarled, annoyed. No weakness, no mercy. I wanted his blood. I wanted his life. He had tried me and failed. Kill him, and take my rightful place. Who did I think I was? Harry, whispered a terrified voice, without releasing his throat. I looked up. Susan stood there in the moonlight, slender and graceful for her 2 legs. Her camera was in one hand, dangling forgotten at her side. Her eyes were wide with desire, and she smelled of perfume and our mating and of fear. Something pressed at my awareness, and though part of me wanted to ignore it, to rip and rend, I focused on Susan, her expression, on her eyes. They weren't wide with desire, they were terrified. She was terrified of me. My God, she said, Harry. She felt her knees staring at me. My eyes. I felt Denton's pulse beneath my tongue, felt his whimpers vibrating in my mouth. So easy, one simple motion. I would never have doubts, fears, questions, never again. And something inside of me said in a calm tone, You'll never be Harry Dresden again. Power. I could feel the belt's power in me, its magic, its strength. I recognized it now. That dark surety, that heady, careless delight. I recognized why there were parts of me that loved it so much. I released Denton's throat and backed away from him. I scrambled with my paws, my stomach twisting in sudden nausea, rebelling at the very idea of what I had been about to do. I sobbed and tore the belt from my waist, ripping my shirt in the process. Feeling my body grow awkward and heavy and clumsy and pained again, injuries that had been nothing to the wolf form returned in vengeance to my human frailty. I threw the belt away from me as far as it would go. I felt hot tears on my face and the loss of that joy, that energy, that impervious strength. You bastard, I said to Denton. Damn you, you poor bastard. He lay on his side now, whimpering from his injuries, bleeding from many wounds. One leg curled limp and useless beneath him, crawled to him and took his belt away, threw it after the other. Susan rushed to me, but I caught her before she could embrace me. Don't touch me, I told her. I meant it every so me. Don't touch me now. Susan flinched away from me as though the words had burned her. Harry, she whispered. Oh, God, Harry, we've got to get you away from all this. From the far side of the ring of trees, there was another furious bellow. There was a motion in the trees, and then Murphy, leading a stumbling, clumsy string of naked alphas, came out of the woods toward me, staying low. She had a gun, probably taken from one of the bodies, in her good hand. All right, I said, as they approached, and I turned a shoulder to Susan, pressing her away. I couldn't even look at her. Murphy, you and Susan, get these kids out of here now. No, Murphy said, I'm staying. Her eyes flickered to Denton, narrowed in a flash of anger, then dismissed him again as quickly. She made no move to examine his injuries. Maybe she didn't care if he bled to death either. You can't hurt McFinn, I said. And you can? She asked. She leaned closer and peered at me. Christ, Dresden, you've got blood all over your mouth. I snarled. Take the kids and go, Karen. I'm handling things here. Murphy, for answer, slipped the safety off the gun. I'm the cop here, she said. Not you. This is a bust in progress. I'm staying to the end. She smiled tight. When I can sort out who is a good guy and who isn't. I spat another curse. I don't have time to argue this with you. Susan, get the kids back to the van. But Harry, she began. Fury rose to the top of my rampant emotions coursing through me. I've got enough blood on my hands, I screamed. Get these kids out of here, damn you. Susan's dark-toned face went pale, and she turned to the nearest of the naked, wet, shivering alphas, Georgia, as it happened. She took the young woman's hand, had the others line up in drug-hazed confusion, and joined hands, and then led them away. I watched them go and felt the seething anger and sorrow and fear in me twist around in confusion. From the far side of the woods there was another bellow of rage, a shaking of one of the evergreens, and a sharp, sudden yelp of purest anguish, terror. The sound of She-Wolf's pain rose to a frantic gargling sound, then went silent. Murphy and I stared at the trees. I thought I saw a flicker of red eyes somewhere behind them, and then it was gone. It's coming around, Murphy said. It'll circle around to get to us. Yeah, I said. The Loop Guru's blood was up, and after the infuriating chase after Tara, it would go after whatever it saw next. My mouth twisted bitterly, and it had a unique insight to its point of view now. What do we do? Murphy said, her knuckles whitened on the gun. We go after it and try to hold out long enough for Susan and the kids to get away. I said. What about Marcone? What about him? He saved our lives, I said. Murphy's expression said she wasn't happy with that idea. We owe him. Do you want to get him out of here? I don't want to leave anyone else to that thing, I said. How about you? She closed her eyes and let out a breath. All right, she said, but God, this smells like you're trying to set me up, Dresden. If you get me killed, there's no one left who saw what happened there, is there? If you want to be safe, go after Susan, I said bluntly. We split up. One of us attracts his attention. Maybe the other one will get through. Fine, Murphy snarled. Fuck you, Harry Dresden. Famous last words, I thought, but I didn't waste my breath on voicing it. It was time to face the Loop Guru. Now, the 2-hour point has been hit, but I still have technically two chapters. Let's see what I can do here. Oh, they're very short. They're fairly short. I am going to power through these, and then we will switch to gaming and stuff. Chapter 33. I circled into the trees and stepped over Harris's corpse. The kid's face had been smashed in by two bullets. The semi-automatic was still in his dead hand. Murphy must have had Wilson's gun. Wilson lay not far from Harris, also dead. Wounds to the chest, massive bleeding. Ben lay next to him, naked, but for the business skirt soaked in blood. There was a line of greenish goo around her waist, probably the remains of the wolf belt. Its magic must have died when she did. I tried not to look at the mangled meat on the back of her thighs or the tears near her jugular. I tried not to smell her blood or to notice the dark surge of contemptuous pride that went through me, leftovers from my experience with my own wolf belt. I shuddered and went past the bodies. The night was silent but for the wind and the creaking ropes that supported the platform in the middle of the encircling evergreens. I could still see Marcone hog-tied up there. The position must have been excruciating. It isn't every day that you get crucified and hung up as dinner for a monster, and you can't really train your muscles for it. I couldn't see Marcone's expression, but I could almost feel his agony. I waved a hand as he spun gently toward me, and he nodded his head, silent. I pointed at my eyes and then around at the shadowed trees, trying to ask him if he knew where the loup-garou was, but he shook his head. Either he didn't understand me or he couldn't see it, and either way he didn't do me any good. I grimaced and moved forward through the trees, skirting the edge of the pit. I looked for the rope that you used to haul Marcone up to his current position. It had to have been tied off somewhere low. I peered through the dark, followed the strand of rope back down the trees it was tied to, and headed over toward it. Maybe I could get out of this. Maybe Murphy and I could escape with Marcone, join Susan and the others, and get out of here. No, that was a happy fantasy. Even if I did get everyone out, I knew I couldn't live with myself if I let the loup-garou go loose tonight on another killing spree. I had to stop it. I was already going to have hard enough time living with myself. The rope supporting Marcone had been secured with a hasty knot, easily undone. I started working it, rubbernecking all around, listening, trying to locate the loup-garou. It wouldn't have just run off and left us here alive, would it? I took a turn around the tree with the rope to give me a little leverage, and then, very carefully, because my bum arm, started lowering Marcone. If I could get him low enough, I could have him swing over to me from the pit's center, catch him, balance him, and then go back and release the rope. It would have been easier if Murphy was there, but I hadn't seen her. A nasty thought hit me. What if Murphy had run across the loup-garou and had killed her silently, whatever it was, even now trying to get to me? I secured the rope and moved back over to the pit. Marcone, no dummy, was already swinging back and forth as best he could, trying to get himself over to me. I went to the edge of the pit and crouched down, keeping my weight well away from the crumbling earth at the pit's lip. Marcone let out a sudden startled hiss and said, "Tristan, the pit!" I looked down and saw loup-garou's eyes glowing down in the darkness of the pit, only a heartbeat before they surged toward me with a howl of rage. It was coming up the wall of the pit, simply gouging its claws into the mud and hauling itself upward toward me. I reeled back from the thing and threw out a hand and screamed, "Fuego!" Nothing happened except a little puff of steam like a breath exhaled on a cold night, and suddenly blinding pain in my head. The loup-garou hurtled toward me, and I threw myself down on the earth, rolling away from its claws as it came up over the edge of the pit. It raked me, caught the edge of my leather duster, and pinned it to the earth. I liked the coat, but I didn't like it that much. I slipped out of it, and as the loup-garou clawed its rear legs, as much as I had only moments before, and inched up out of the pit. I was already running by the time it got out, and I heard it snarl, getting its bearings, and then come after me. I was dead. I was so dead. I'd gotten the kids out and Susan, and I'd stopped Denton and his cronies, but I was about to pay the price. I slipped through the trees and onto the grass again. Panting cold now that my jacket was off, my shoulder ached from the running, from all the motion. My foot hurt abominably as well. I couldn't run any longer, physically couldn't. My steps slowed despite the commands of my brain, and I wept with frustration, weaving around just to keep on my feet. I was at the end of my rope. It was over. I turned to face the trees to watch the loup-garou coming. I wanted to see it coming, at least. If I was going to be killed, I wanted to face it on my feet, head on, go down with a little dignity. I saw its red eyes among the trees. It came forward, slow, low to the ground, wary of some trick. I had stung it before, and I actually hurt it. I didn't want to fall victim to another such attack. It didn't want to fall victim to another such attack, I thought. It wanted to make absolutely sure that I was dead. I drew in a breath and straightened my back. I lifted my chin, trying to prepare myself. If I was going down, I'd go down as a wizard should, proud and ready to face what was beyond. I could spill out my death curse, a potent working of magic, if I had time to speak it. Maybe I could counter McFinn's curse with it and take the hard transformation off of him that St. Patrick had allegedly laid on him. Or maybe I could bring down Marcone's criminal empire with it. I debated these things as I drew out the silver pentacle amulet I'd inherited from my mother so that it would lie bright on my chest. My mother's amulet. Silver. Amulet. Inherited from my mother. Inherited silver. My eyes widened and my hands started to shake. A drowning man would reach for anything that floats. The idea floated if I could pull it off. If only my brainlessness hadn't kept me from realizing what I had until it was too late. I took the silver pentacle off my neck, breaking the chain in my haste. I caught the broken ends in my fist as I fastened my eyes on the loup-garou and started to whirl the amulet in a circle above my head with my good arm. The amulet described a circle in the night air as I spun it, and I invested that circle with a tiny spark of will, a tiny bit of power. My head pounded. I felt the circle close around me, containing magical energies, focusing them. I hurt. I was weary. I felt as though I'd betrayed myself, giving myself over to the darkness I tried so hard to resist by donning the evilly enchanted wolf belt. Because let there be no mistaking, that is evil. Anything that with that much power and that little control, that utter lack of concern for anything but self is evil in the most effective sense of the word. There was nothing left inside of me. But I had to find it. I had to find enough magic to stop this bloodletting once and forever. I searched inside of me where everything was numb and empty and tired. Magic comes from the heart, from your feelings, your deepest expressions of desire. That's why black magic is so easy. It comes from lust and fear and anger, from things that are easy to feed and make grow. The sort I do is harder. It comes from something deeper than that, a truer and purer source, harder to tap, harder to keep, but ultimately more elegant and more powerful. My magic, that was at the heart of me. It was a manifestation of what I believed, what I lived. It came from my desire to see that someone stood between the darkness and the people who would devour. It came from my love of a good steak, from the way I would sometimes cry at a good movie or a moving symphony, from my life, from the hope I could make things better for someone else, if not always for me. Somewhere in all that, I touched on something that wasn't tapped out, in spite of how horrible the past days had been. Something that had been cold and numb inside of me. I grasped it, held it in my hand like a firefly, and willed its energy out into the circle I had created with the spinning amulet on its end of its chain. It began to glow azure blue like a candle flame. The light spread down the chain to the amulet. When it reached, the light became incandescent, a pinnacle of brilliant light at the end of the chain, spinning a circle of light around me, trailing motes of dust that fell like starlight into the grass around me. Vento, I whispered, and then called more loudly, Vento Servitas! Ventus, Vento Servitas! And the bushes the loop grew snarled quietly, its eyes bright and burned with scarlet fury. It started moving toward me. Without warning, Murphy stepped between me and the loop grew, her gun held in both hands in a shooter's stance. Though the cast made that awkward, she held her gun pointed directly at me. Harry, she said in a very calm tone, get down on the ground right now. My eyes widened. I could see over Murphy. I could see the loop grew moving rapidly toward her through the trees. I saw it focus on her, felt its malice and hunger spread toward her and envelop her. I couldn't speak. I couldn't break the chain or start whirling the amulet. To do so would have released the energy I'd gathered, the very last strength I had in me. My head hammered with pain that would have had me screaming on any other night. I kept the amulet whirling, spraying motes of light in the brilliant white pinnacle at the end, leash of blue light. I mean it, Harry, Murphy said. I don't know what you're doing, but get down. Her eyes were intense, and she lifted the gun, thumbing back the hammer. Trust, wherever trust she had in me, was gone. She had seen or thought of something that made her think I was trying to betray her. The loop grew rushed closer, and I thought, with a sick feeling in my stomach, that Susan the Alphas hadn't even had time to make it off the estate yet, much less all the way back to the van. If the loop grew got through me, it would kill them one by one, follow their trail like a hound, and tear them apart. Harry, Murphy said, her voice pleading, her hands were shaking. Please, Harry, get down. The loop guru came through the woods in a sudden rush, and Murphy drew in a breath ready to fire. I kept the amulet whirling and felt the power grow, my head splitting with agony, and made my choice. I just hoped I could finish the job before Murphy gunned me down. Everything of the past few days came down in a single instant. It all slowed down, giving me time to view it in agonizing detail. The loop guru rose up behind Murphy, leaping toward her through the air. It was still huge, still powerful, and more terrifying than ever. Its jaws were open wide, aimed for her blonde head, and could crush it with a single snap. Murphy narrowed her eyes, peering down the shaking barrel of her gun. Flame blossomed from the barrel, reaching out toward me. She wasn't 20 feet away from me. I didn't think there was any way she could miss, and I thought with a pang of sadness that I wanted a chance to apologize to her before the end, before everything. Venus Servitas! I shouted, released the spell of the circle, and the ambulance as the sound of the shot hit me like a slap in the face. Power rushed out of me. Everything I had left in me, focused and magnified by the circle and the time I'd taken to refine it. Flying forward toward the leaping loop guru, something hot and painful hammered into my torso, almost like it hit my back. I toppled forward, too weak and tired to carry anymore, but I watched what happened to the amulet. The pinnacle flew toward the loop guru like a comet, incandescent white, and struck the creature's breast like lightning hammering into an ancient tree. There was a flash of light, too much power unleashing, and a flaring of energy as the mystic substance shattered the loop guru's invulnerability, carved into it, coursed through it in a blinding blue-white shower of sparks. Blue fire erupted from his chest, its black heart's blood igniting the blinding flame. The creature screamed, arching backward in agony. There was a sound of thunder, flashes of more light, someone screaming. Maybe it was me. The loop guru fell to earth and changed. Muzzle melted back into human face. Fangs and claws faded. Warped muscles slid away into globs of clear preternatural ooze that would quickly vanish. Fur disappeared. Knotted limbs straightened into clean arms and legs until Harley McFinn lay before me, partly upon his side, one hand pressed to his chest. The silver of my amulet's chain spilled out between his fingers and dangled on his chest. He stared down at the wound for a moment, then I saw him relax. McFinn looked up, and in his face, all I saw all the grief and agony and impotent rage, everything he'd felt during all those years of being unable to control himself, cursed to cause death and destruction when all he wanted was to open a park for the wildlife. And then it all flooded out of him. His eyes cleared and warmed as he looked at me, and he gave me a small, quiet smile. It was an expression of forgiveness, something to let me know he had understood. Then he laid down his head and was gone. My own blackness followed soon after. Chapter 34. I woke up. That surprised me in and of itself. I woke up to see the moon still high overhead, to feel Murphy's hand on my forehead. "Come on, Harry," she whispered. "Don't do this to me." I blinked my eyes a few times and whispered, "You shot me, Murph. I can't believe you shot me." She blinked her eyes to me to hold back tears. "You stupid jerk," she said in a voice gentle. "You should have gone down when I told you to." "I was busy." She glanced over her shoulder and been silent still for me. I saw after. She turned back to me, looking a little past me, focused elsewhere. "It's all right. I forgive you." I thought it very generous of me, appropriate to the last moments of a man's life. Murphy blinked at me and then stiffened. "You what?" "Forgive you, Murph, for shooting me. Your job and all, I understand." Murphy's eyes narrowed dangerously. "You think?" She said, her face twisted with disgust, and sputtered for a moment, then spat to one side. She began again. "You think that I thought you were one of the bad guys still, and I shot you because you wouldn't surrender?" I felt too weak and dizzy to argue. "Hey, it's understandable. Don't worry about it," I shivered. "I'm so cold." "We're all cold, moron," Murphy snapped. "A front came through the same time they threw us in that freaking pit. It must be below 40 already. We're wet besides. Sit up, Elf Sid." I blinked at her. "Huh, what?" "Sit up, dummy," Murphy said. "Look behind you." I did sit up, and it didn't hurt much worse than it had earlier this evening. Surprising me again, I looked behind me. Denton was there. He had held a fallen branch in one hand like a club. His eyes were wide and staring and savage, his face pale with loss of blood. There was a neat hole in his forehead right in the middle. I blinked at the body for a moment. "But how did he—" "I shot him, you jerk. He came up running behind you just as I came back from giving first aid to that naked woman, Tara West. I was shaking too hard to have a safe shot with you standing, and I didn't know the Luke Garou was coming up behind me." Murphy stood up. "I can't believe this," she said, and turned to walk away. "You thought I shot you." "Murph," I protested. "Murph, give me a break. I mean, I thought—" She snorted at me over her shoulder. She snorts well for someone with a cute little button of a nose. "You didn't think, Dresden," she said, flipping her hair back from her eyes. "Dramatic death scene, noble sacrifice, right? Tragically misunderstood." "Ha! I understand you, buddy. You're such a pompous, arrogant, pretentious, chauvinistic, hopelessly old-fashioned, stupidly pig-headed—" Murphy went on in graphic detail at great length about me as she walked away to call the police and ambulance, and it was music to my ears. I lay back on the grass, tired but smiling. Things were all right between us. The police had one hell of a time sorting out the mess at Marcone's place. I made sure to collect all the wolf belts. Murphy helped me. We burned them right there in the stinking fire made of tree branches. It was too hard for me to throw them in. Murph did it for me. She understands things sometimes that I couldn't ever explain to her. Later, I went with Murph to Carmichael's funeral. She went with me to Kim Delaney's. Those are the kind of things friends do for each other. Mr. Hendricks, as it turns out, had worn his Kevlar under the black fatigues. They put me next to him in the ambulance. That night when I finally left the scene, they bared his chest, and it was a solid mass of purple bruises, so that we had a match set. He glowered at me in silence, but he breathed steadily through the oxygen mask on his face. I felt absurdly cheered when I saw him alive. All things considered, can you blame me? Marcone got arrested on general principles, but nothing stuck. Though everything happened on his property, injuries on the FBI agents indicated they had done one another in, or been killed by an animal, except for Denton, of course. None of the peace officers there had possessed a warrant, etc., etc. I hear his lawyers had him out in less than 3 hours. Marcone called me a few days later and said, "You owe me your life, Mr. Dresden. Are you sure we can't talk business?" "The way I see it, John," I told him, "you owe me your life. After all, even if you cut yourself free, you'd have just fallen down in the pit and got eaten with the rest of us. I figure you thought your highest chances of survival were in freeing me, the wizard deals with this kind of thing, to handle it." "Of course," Marcone said with a note of disappointment in his voice. "I just hoped you hadn't realized it. Nonetheless, Harry—" "Don't call me Harry," I said and hung up on him. Susan filmed the death of Luke Garou from less than 50 yards away with a pretty good zoom lens and special light-sensitive film. The light from my amulet illuminated the scene rather dramatically without showing it many details. You can only see my back, and it looks like I'm swinging a glow stick around and throwing it at the monster, which can be seen only in shadowy detail as something large and furry. At the point where I released the spell, there was a burst of static about a second long when the magic messed up Susan's camera even from that far away. In the film, the static clears and you see Murphy shoot Denton off my back just before he brings me with his club. And then she spins around like Rambo, jumps out of the way of the leaping furry something or other, and empties the rest of her clip into the thing out of reflex. Murphy and I both know the bullets didn't hurt at all. That was just a reflexive gesture on her part. Excuse me. Excuse me again. But I don't need the attention. She was quite the hero according to the camera, and that's fine with me. River, go on. River. Oh. Susan's films went on the morning news, and she was shown about 2 days afterward exclusively on WGN Channel 9. And impressed Chicago a lot. The film made Murphy popular enough with voters that a bunch of city councilmen went to bat for her. The internal affairs investigation got called off. She carries a little more clout now than she did before. The politicians out at City Hall paid for a real name tag on her office door. Oh, for pity's sake, River. The weird thing was that the film just vanished after 2 days. No one knew what happened to it, but the film technician in the room with the exclusive WGN Channel 9 videotape disappeared too, leaving only a few scattered and low-quality copies. A couple days later, some experts spoke up claiming that the tape had to be a fake, decried as a simple hoax perpetrated by a tabloid. Some people just can't deal with the thought of the supernatural being real. Federal government is like that a lot. But I'm thinking if anyone in the government did believe, they would just as soon not have had proof of the existence of werewolves and the instability of a local FBI agent showing at 5, 6, and 10. The film's disappearance didn't stop Susan from getting a promotion at the Arcane, a big raise in the guest law on the Larry King show, plus a few other places. She looked good doing it, too, and it made people think. She's getting her column syndicated. Maybe in a few hundred years, people might actually be willing to consider what was real in the world with an open mind. But I doubted it. I didn't call Susan for a while after she had seen me so far gone into being a monster that I might as well been one. She didn't pressure me, but kept her presence known. She'd send me flowers sometimes or have pizza delivered to my office when I was working late. Hell of a girl. Tara was badly injured but recovered thanks to her own reversion to human form. Murphy's quick first aid. She asked me to meet her at Wolf Park, Lake Park a few weeks later, and when I showed up, she was there wearing a long black coat. I wish to tell you that what you did was necessary, and I wish to tell you goodbye, she said, and slipped the cloak off. She was naked with a few new wrinkled scars. Goodbye. Where will you go? I asked. She tilted those odd amber eyes at me. I have family, she said. I have not seen them in a long time. I will return to them now. Maybe you'll call us sometime? Her eyes sparkled, and she smiled at me a little sadly. No, Harry Dresden, that is not the way of my kind. Come to the great mountains in the northwest one winter. Perhaps I will be there. And then she shimmered into the shape of a great timber wolf and vanished into the sunset. All these people shape-shifting into wolves, and I had never once considered the possibility of a wolf shape-shifting into a person. I picked up Tara's cloak, musing, and took it home with me, as a reminder to keep my mind even more open to the realms of possibility. The Alphas decided that I'm about the greatest thing since sliced bread, which isn't exactly the most thrilling thing in the world for me. They asked me to a camp out with them, which I reluctantly attended, where all dozen odd young people swore friendship and loyalty to me, and where I spent a lot of time blinking and trying to say nothing. They were just itching for me to lead them in some meaningful crusade against evil. Hell, I have trouble just paying the bills. When I took some time to think about all that happened, I couldn't help but think the last several months had been a little too crazy for coincidence. First, a power-drunk warlock had appeared out of nowhere and had to duke it out with him in his own stronghold before he murdered me outright. Then Denton and his people showed up with enchanted wolf belts and raised hell. I never found out who exactly was behind the warlock who showed up the previous spring. Black wizards don't just grow up like toadstools, you know. Someone has to teach them complicated things like summoning demons, ritual magic, and cliched villain dialogue. Who has been his teacher? And Denton and company had shown up 6 months later. Someone had provided me those belts. Someone who warned Denton that I was dangerous, that I or someone like me from the council would go after him. And by telling him that, they had pointed him at me like a gun, determined to kill me. I'm not much of a believer in coincidence. Could have been one of my enemies at the White Council, one of the beings of the Never Never who come to hate me. I was on the list of a number of nasty things for one reason or another. You know what? I told Mister one night in front of the fire. Maybe I've finally gone around the bend, but I think someone might be trying to kill me. Mister looked up at me, his feline features filled with a supreme lack of concern, and rolled over so I could rub his tummy. I did, pensive and comfortable before the fire, and thought about who it might be. And then thought I might be getting a little stir-crazy. I hadn't gone anywhere but to work and back home for a couple of weeks. Too much work, no play makes Harry a paranoid boy. I reached for the phone and started spinning the dial to Susan's number. Mister batted at my hand approvingly. Or maybe I'm just too stupid to get out of trouble's way, eh? Mister rumbled a deep affirmative purr in his chest. I settled back to ask Susan over and enjoying the warmth of the fire. See, that only took me an extra 20 minutes. And a little stopover for River's barking. Alright, it is almost 4. I have about an hour and a half left of the stream. that is the end of Full Moon. I hope you guys enjoyed it. In about a month from now, we're going to start back with Grave Peril, I do believe. That will be in November. Hopefully we can get through that book within the month, and then around December I'm going to do Christmas stories and stuff, which would be kind of fun. I like to have little departures every now and again, you know? And then by January we should be into the next omnibuy of this big old book here. And I will be replacing the book, hopefully first of the year, with the next installment of Harry Dresden. So 3 books in a year is not a bad thing. Even though I started kind of back to it late in the year. But I want to take this moment to pause for the cows, get things ready for the zombies of the slapping and things, and I'll be back in a moment.